Bill.
Looks like our prayers work.
Exactly. Afternoon and welcome to the regular workshop, Tuesday, March 9th. It is 2 o'clock. I'm going to ask Commissioner Rawls to do the invocation and Commissioner Turner to do the pledge. All stand if you can.
Please help me. Heavenly gracious Lord, we just thank you so much for this day that you've given us to be able to serve our community, and just ask that you keep our families, our fellow employees, and our citizens in your gracious hands, and just ask that you lay your healing hands on our community as we go forward in this pandemic. Also ask that you bless everybody that's in attendance today. Just thank you so much for everything you do for us and our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls and Commissioner Turner. Do have a person in the audience shadowing Sarah. Her name is Miss Bailey, right? Bailey Brown, is that right? Okay. And she's from Palaca High School, and she'll be shadowing the Palaca Daily News. So are you going to be writing the story today? You don't know? Okay, good. All right. Our next item is our public comment on agenda items. Do we have any public comment on agenda items? All right, seeing no public comments on agenda item, we have to wait. I'm sorry. We're going to have to wait 3 minutes, so we're going to recess for 3 minutes. Get started. Mr. Adamczak, we got you a name tag for you, so thank you. Okay. Now we're going to go into our Port Authority workshop. Is there any public comments on Port Authority? Just general, okay. Then we're going to go to item B, the administrative business park, and our administrator will take care of this from here.
Yes, sir. Apologize, my microphone on. Mr. Chairman, per your direction and the board's direction, a week or so ago, we did exactly what I think you had asked for, but I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Julianne Young, who is running that project.
Good afternoon. In your packets, you will see an updated quote package for the general landscaping / lawn maintenance of the business park, just the entryway. So that is just West Larkson Boulevard to PRC Way, which the board identified they wanted to maintain. This is just for general landscaping, mowing the grass, et cetera, once a month. And as you will see, the lowest bid came in, or quote came in at $450 per month. That does not include the beautification of that entry island, which was an optional option to begin with. That would be another $1,600 from the low vendor, and then an additional $100 a month added on to the landscaping. There are 3 different aspects of the business park on your agenda, and to some degree they tie into each other. So I'm going to give a brief overview of each of the 3 items that are there.
Why
So,
don't we just take one at a time and
okay.
go from there?
Mr. Chairman, I think they're all gonna tie to one another, such as we may not have to do number 1 if number 3 works out.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. The board also asked staff to look at what can be done to mitigate the ATV riding and usage of the public on that property. And we did reach out and work with Donnie Jordan, who has asked for a couple of things. One, he would like the board to approve putting up no parking on the right-of-way. That allows him to enforce parking on the right-of-way, and there is a large portion of right-of-way that the riders are parking and offloading their ATVs and then launching out from there. So that would be one item that could mitigate it. And then the other item, which is not directly ATV, but he would like the permission from the board to post no illegal dumping signs, also again as an enforcement issue. Once we have the signage up, Mr. Jordan and I will work with the Sheriff's Office PIO as well as your county PIO team to start telling citizens, hey, we're going to begin enforcing this weekend, so that hopefully the PR behind it catches people before they just get a citation or something of that nature. That would allow Mr. Jordan a little bit more enforcement for those 2 items. And last but not least, thank you to Executive Director Grimes. We were able to have an offer from the Florida Forestry Services to partner with the county and use that acreage for 2 things. One, training their new rangers in dozer work and that type of thing. And then ultimately, within the next year or over the next year, they are agreeable to taking that land into their management plan, which would help us mitigate, make it, in Mr. Grimes's terms, fire-friendly, which basically says we're not going to be fire-friendly, and help us with controlled burns, and they could plow roadways and right-of-ways as we direct them to. They could plow through the trails that are currently being used and block those entrances, which would of course assist us in that, in the mitigation of the ATV. So like I said, they're kind of all intertwined because they would also help us with brush and undesirable brush and some controlled burns and that type of thing, which ties into landscaping.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Do you have a comment?
I didn't know if you had any further questions on the FFS deal. They said they would be happy to come in and create berms if we needed berms. They would be happy to help us level roads if we needed to put roads in, because they're getting young, inexperienced rangers. They said they would take it in underneath their state mitigation plan, that if we had areas that we wanted to control burn or manage the forests or whatever, they were really excited about coming in. They could do the forestry mulching. And to try to help open that land up to where it could actually be patrolled by our sheriff's deputies. They could drive by there and actually see into the woods, see the piles that are being dumped, and maybe potentially do something with it. So they were willing to take it on into their next year's mitigation plan. But he said in the meantime, before the Rangers are able to go to Tallahassee or where they have to go to do their training, they'd be happy to give them some hours on their equipment, working around our business part to make it better and more attractive for business.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Rawls?
I think before we get too deep in that, we've got to remember this is in the city limits. they have a tree ordinance. They would probably not be happy. But what we could do to mitigate some of the trail riding, and same thing the state does, is they'll drop pine trees across trails. And it, you do it on a tree that's across the trail, that makes you turn around. But I think we got to be very careful on that property out there, especially because it is in the city limits.
Sure. And I mean, I'm sure their mitigation team would work with the city.
Yeah, but if they didn't know, you look like, yeah, oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot. You could look on
Well,
your face.
yeah, but I mean, we would
It would be a
absolutely.
big mistake.
Yeah. But I'm sure their guys do that, you know, this was just a preliminary talk of if it was even, you guys entertain even talking about it, so. But they said they were absolutely
I
willing to
wouldn't have
help.
a problem with it as long as, like I said, for them, it's gonna be problematic because taking that big plow through those small trails, they're gonna tear up a lot of trees. And, you know, you have to get the city's tree ordinance out and review it, but oak trees are definitely on it, and there's a lot of oak trees out there.
Okay.
Commissioner Turner?
One of my questions was the tree ordinance. I'd see if we could get it exempt. My other question, I guess, would be, is this gonna affect any future lot sales? In other words, can we go ahead and, if someone makes us an offer, we can still sell that lot in the business park to someone and just take it out of the management plan at that time?
You want me to take
Yeah,
it?
go ahead.
That should be exactly how we work it, Commissioner Turner. We should work closely with the FFS, which is the Florida Forestry Service, on a management plan so that they would understand. This is actually an opportunity for them it's more assistance for them than it really is for us. Well, it gives them an opportunity to bring somebody in and train them on their equipment and all that. So I think it'd be a good,
Yeah,
I think we can get
understand
that done.
Okay, with that being said, are they going to, in their management plan, do anything with the maintenance and upkeep of the road in, or do we still need to try to do that on top of, or do it for now as a as-needed basis, or do we need to hire somebody to mow this for a year under the pricing that was supplied to us today, or do we know any of that at this time?
Well, we haven't had those conversations, but I believe if we're talking about the Larson Drive and the PRC Way, I believe that's probably going to end up with it being paved being the county's responsibility. But we can initiate those conversations at the right time, but I would think right now that's going to fall on the shoulders of Putnam
Wouldn't be
County.
the prudent thing to do if we were interested in this to put off the conversation now that we've already cleaned up the entrance way for the present time? Wouldn't it be the prudent thing to do to maybe go ahead and hire these people to plant the flowers or do whatever to make it a little nicer, and then find out what the forestry department is gonna do as part of their business plan?
I think it would be very prudent for us to move forward on our needs today and have a discussion with the Forestry Division at the appropriate time. Yes, sir.
Okay, that was what I was wondering, if we shouldn't maybe put off number one, or at least maybe go ahead and beautify the access at this point or something, but just not hire them on a month-to-month basis till we find out what it is that they're gonna actually do at the Forest Department.
I mean, we can research that and have the conversations and get back with the commissioners as soon as possible. Knowing the amount of activity that's going on out there right now, as far as folks wanting to come and look at the business park, I think it'd be prudent on us to do everything that we could at this point to make sure that we put a product out there that's at least entertainable and valuable for folks to come look at. But we can entertain any conversations with the forestry as we can as we move forward.
So, you the best I ever heard at saying a lot and not telling me.
Okay, I will say, I'll be very direct. I think the county needs to go ahead and do what we need to do to do what necessary to the beautification and the cleanup of those properties out there so that we make them viable for future economic development.
Okay, can we put this in lay terms? Okay. Would you or would you not like to proceed with item number one as far as all of it, part of it? Do you want to talk to forestry first? Do you want us to give you the permission to do it after you talk to forestry, where we don't have to talk about this again? How would you like to handle this to where the easiest way for staff to take it from this forward?
I think just giving us the authority to move forward with items one as we speak today, and then have the conversations with forestry moving forward. But I do think that we need to go ahead and get out there and get some work done to get this ready to go.
Okay.
Well, I don't think that forestry is going to mow the grass.
I don't either. I just think that we need to go ahead and do what we need to do and have those conversations.
Yeah, and they're not gonna do the maintenance on that. Now, what we did leave off is that 40 feet over to the east side of West Larson Boulevard, where all those plants are planted up there, and Julianne, I have talked about that. I have an idea, seriously, because I think we need to include that in that scope of work, because that needs to be mowed on a regular basis. But what if we hired the ARC to come in there and do y'all know where I'm talking about as far as the up here on top of that berm along St. John's Avenue as you go west? When you get in that lane over there, you see all the plants that are up there on the berm. Everybody know where I'm talking about?
Right there in the sign.
Yeah, right by, yeah, before
okay.
you get to the sign. Okay, it's not on the west side, it's only on the east side. But the weeds in there are pretty big. I mean, the weeds are bigger than the bushes. So my thought is, why couldn't we hire ARC to go in there and clean up? All we're asking them to do is clean up those weeds and those bushes. And then we can, if we choose to go on a monthly contract, that's already done. But we do need to take in that scope of work to mow that side. Because I don't think Public Works mows all the way up to that berm.
Yeah, and I'd agree that 40 to 60 feet, basically to where the sidewalk ends on the left,
Right.
beyond where the picture goes. Where the end of the yellow, dark yellow is, the sidewalk goes past there about 40 or 50 feet.
I'm following you.
To the big green
Absolutely.
box there.
I'm with you. So we would then be asking the contractors to modify their scope of work an additional time, although we could talk to the ARC and determine if they have clients available for that capacity. Their ARC services are limited to what their clients' capacities are at the time and based on their demand level and that type of thing. But we certainly are always welcome to reach out to them and see.
Okay. Mr. Ross?
Well, have we had any conversation about the other companies out there, being Camarco and the call center, participating in this? Because this really benefits them as well. That's one question. I don't see why we don't still go ahead and move forward. You've got AACI with an opportunity of $1,650 to go in, and I guess construction of the planting area. I'm assuming that involves demolition of the existing landscape as necessary, trimming the palm trees and planting.
What his proposal included is just the narrative that's there, so I'm not sure that he's taking anything out. He offered 100 miniature azaleas, Aztec grass, and approximately 100 to 150 bags of mulch. Outside of that, I do not believe there's anything included in his proposal.
So what about the palm trees?
They would remain as they are according to his price. It was not included.
Well, but I think at some point we need to get something negotiated, but, you know, if you do everything that's on the ground and you don't do any of the palm trees, when you pull in there, they look pretty bad. So I thought that's what we discussed last time, was getting the palm trees cleaned up, tearing out all the old landscaping and putting in mulch and just minimal, as a basic scope of work along that area, but.
I didn't remember it being, Mr. Chairman, I didn't remember it being like that. I remembered that we were gonna go in there and dress up the existing landscaping best we could, so we sent in crews or whoever, and they went in there and mowed it and cleaned it up some, and then we were gonna augment it by adding this additional stuff in there. So, you know, personally, I don't wanna diminish the importance of what we're talking about today, but, really, how many meetings have we got to have here to be able to spend $450 a month and $1,650 to go in there and do it, and maintenance of the planted area? So basically, it's like $550 a month. That's a long way from the $30,000 a year that we were talking about when we brought this forward. So, you know, the $550 a month doesn't give me heartburn. It costs pretty much that to do my own small yard. So I just don't think it's a lot of area to do it. I just say we go ahead and give staff the authority to move forward within these limits, and let's take a look at it. If something else needs doing, then give staff the authority to spend a little more to prune the trees or to do whatever's necessary to make it move forward.
I agree. I would, oh,
Mr.
I'm
Adams,
sorry.
Mr. Adams,
I mean, could Public Works trim the trees once a year? I mean, so that we don't have to muddy the waters?
I go
Oh,
out
it's
there
not
with
what
my
they do.
pole.
Right, right. I mean, it's 8 palm trees, I think. It's not,
Yeah, again, Public Works can do a lot of stuff. It's just, you want to take us away from that?
Right.
Or drainage or mowing. So I have very limited crews.
Right.
And we can do it, but I would suggest, if we're dealing with business park, I would suggest contracting it out.
so could we give like an extra, it's $20 a month or something if they trim the palm trees once every 6 months or something?
It's a once a year deal.
Allow them, right, it's once a year.
Well, in their monthly cost that they did, it is trimming trees, it is doing that stuff. That's in their monthly cost.
So that's covered in the monthly, then, is that right?
The general,
They do need cleaned up.
does talk about weedy all areas, including any fenced areas around the trees and bushes along the curb next to the road. Trim all trees, bushes as needed. Blow off the surrounding road areas and sidewalks in the area.
So day one, let them know the trees need to be trimmed as needed.
And it, you know,
Hang
I'll
on,
be happy to communicate that.
Mr. Rawls, Mr. Rawls.
All right, so here's what I would propose. This thing all in is $8,250. Let's authorize it to $10,000. Ask them to get the trees whipped into shape day one. Make that a part of the scope of work. And,
Include the east side of that,
correct.
okay.
But we also need to get somebody on our side that can go out there and maintain that sprinkler system, because there is a sprinkler system there. I've seen the pump and all that on the left. If somebody could just go fire it off, make sure it works. Otherwise, unless we get a lot of rain here in the near future, it's not going to thrive. But I would put that in the form of a motion, just to authorize it to $10,000, which would give them an additional $1,200 or so to get the trees trimmed, and up to $1,200 or whatever, to get the trees done, and that whole entrance becomes pretty again.
Mr. Turner?
I think you made a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did make a motion. So your motion is $10,000 a year,
Up to $10,000,
10,000,
including this right here.
including the east side mowing that needs to take place in that east side flower bed.
Correct.
A year? A year,
Well, for the next year.
for this coming year.
It may not be our
Is
problem.
this a one-year contract?
I believe we asked them, I believe we did ask them for a year, yes, an annual contract on it.
So Commissioner Rawls's motion is $10,000 for the first year, annual contract, including the east side berm and the mowing.
And cleaning up the trees.
Cleaning up, well,
On the
that's already
initial,
part
yeah.
of the scope of work, so, okay, do we have a second on that? Do we have a second? All right. Mr. Rawls, your motion dies for lack of second. Mr. Turner?
I have no problem with Mr. Rawls' motion. I just don't think we need to limit it. I just think we need to tell them what we need to do. Now we know how much it's gonna cost, and just let staff go handle it. You know, and if it's a year, fine. If they feel like they need to bring it back in a year because it went up, or because of they're not doing a good job, or they need to rebid it, I think we just need to direct staff to do it now that we have a scope of work, and we know how much that scope of work's gonna cost. You know, I'll take a shot at a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we just ask staff to do it basically within the perimeters we've discussed here today.
Yeah, but, okay, so we have a motion,
I'll second it.
but, okay, so
I don't,
under discussion, hang on a second, if you don't mind. I think that's where we're gonna have to start putting dollars amount on
Right.
things. And we talked about that earlier.
This is 8,850.
Yeah, but Commissioner Turner, just go handle it. I don't know if that's gonna work.
Well, within the perimeters of what's been presented today, so if they need
But we're-
to add a little, that's fine, but
But we can't add,
I think Jeff was trying to give a cap. The only reason why,
Excuse me. I think it's, who has the floor, Mr.
you
Chairman?
have it, go ahead.
Okay, so if we're doing it within the perimeters that was presented today, and we told them if it needs to go up $200 to trim some trees or do whatever, you really think we need to bring it back to the commission and have a
Yeah.
fourth meeting?
I don't know why we're
Whether we
discussing
spend
this
$200
anyways.
to trim a palm tree?
Staff has the authority to do it anyways. It could have already been done. We're back here discussing it, so
Well, I think staff wanted direction on taking on a new project. I understand that from them, that they're not just gonna go take on a new project.
in the weeds,
So I
Mike.
say we tell them,
Yep.
we're good, take on the new project, go take care of it. Cause it, I mean, in the scope of the real world, are we really talking about that much? We've got what we're gonna do now and what we want to do and about what it's gonna cost, just let them go do it.
that's
Mr.
what I
Adams,
said.
that?
I think I didn't mind Jeff's first motion, just maybe down to like 9,500. I just don't know that we need to knock it up to 10 grand. That
I'm just
gives
putting a
lot
max
more
on it,
room.
that's all.
And I guess the reason why that makes sense to me is that we know what it is. And obviously Terry, if there's a one-time thing of $400, he can approve that and things like that. We get that.
Yeah.
Either way is fine with me as long as we do it.
All right,
done.
so as I understand the motion, it's to approve the charges that are in the book, and if we need to go up an extra $200 a month or if something else needs to take place,
I didn't put a number on it,
Well,
I did it within the perimeters that we've discussed here today. You know, if it costs $300 to trim some palm trees or something, do we really want a fourth meeting of this board?
don't, but we-
Talk about landscaping that we are gonna do anyhow? I mean,
but we
I'm
took
not
in,
being smart, sir,
we
I'm
took in
really
that
not.
scope of work on the east side that wasn't put in here, and that's gotta get done. The mowing and that flower bed on the east side's gotta get done.
Okay, so it's a few extra dollars, you know, so what you're saying is you'd prefer having some kind of a money max in there or whatever instead of just, I mean, we don't ask Public Works to not mow a certain road because it costs an extra $200, and I think this should be under the same premise.
Well,
This
but,
is a project we wanna take on.
but we're trying to clean up some of these contracts and the scope of work. I mean, Julianne and I had that talk the other day, so why don't you help us get through this real quick, because I'm ready to move on.
Okay, so Chairman, just staff recommendation, we are already scheduled to go back out for our normal landscaping bid here in the next few months. So if the board would just authorize staff to get the business park lawn maintenance under control and on a contract, that would allow us to enter today a month-to-month basis based on all of the scope of work you guys want. And then when we go to bid on something that's gonna be a long-term situation, we would just include it as one of our many properties that the county bids out.
But there's no sense not carrying into that east side of that property.
With the
Because-
east side, yes, when I say the approved scope of work, I believe the board has approved, including the east side.
We've expanded the scope of work. to
That's
include
correct.
the east side.
We're gonna modify
As
it
long as we
again,
did
a
that.
third time, yep.
All right, we have proper motion on the floor, proper second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. All right, any general discussion on Port Authority? Mr. Rolfe?
Yes, all right, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Commissioner, I'm so
We need
sorry.
I
Yes,
need
sir.
to include item 2 and 3.
Yes, sir, I do
Okay.
need
So,
an
Mr.
answer on
Chairman, I
item.
move that we approve items 2 and 3.
So I would need board consent to allow us to put up no parking on the right-of-way and board consent to put up signs
More than
posted.
a motion approving 2 and 3.
Well, it doesn't specifically state that
Okay,
particular
so
item, so if you can approve me to put
I
those
move
signs.
that we allow the signs to be put up as requested by Officer Jordan. Is that 2?
That's
Yes, sir.
two.
And then I also would like to move into negotiations for number 3, authorize staff to move in negotiations with the Forest Service.
Thank
Do we have
you.
a second?
I'll second it for
Okay,
discussion.
we have a proper motion to include 2 and 3 on our proposal with signs, and we have proper second by Commissioner Rawls. Commissioner Rawls, you have your light on?
Yes, so there's a lot of small areas of trash that need to be picked up. I think it would probably be helpful if we direct staff to spend a little bit of money. I'd like to put a limit on that little bit of money, but to get the trash picked up, so this is not an ongoing issue. You know, my intent is to get this whole thing put to bed at one time. You know, I don't know why somebody couldn't go out there with $1,500 put a roll-off dumpster out there. I don't care who provides it, and then get somebody to get all the trash in the dumpster. And then with DOF, the pond on the left as you go in is a very attractive feature to the business park. And a lot of people take the opportunity to go fishing out there. It's a cute little fishing pond, but JR had mentioned DOF having a forestry mulcher, so they could run that and not take down any trees, but get it cleared out where you can look underneath. And I think that would preclude people from going back there, because that's where they are dumping a lot of the stuff. Just drive out there around the pond area and dump. And it's really not attractive for the folks that do like to go out there. And it's also adjacent to our ballpark to the west. So if we can make that happen as part of this package, I think that'd be good.
Well, we have well, hang on. Mr. Turner?
Yeah, my only comment would be is the stuff where you can get to it with a large vehicle.
Yes, people are driving back there in trucks.
Why don't we just ask Jay to go out there and pick the damn stuff up with the mulching thing? Why can't, I mean, with his grappling?
The canopy's real low lying. If you drive a truck in there,
I
it's,
asked
yeah,
him to
you
do
have to
that.
clear the canopy. And that's what I'm saying. If Fortune can go out there and do some of that, if the canopy limbed up a little bit, I think it would stop people from doing that. And it would be a selling point for the business part.
Okay, why don't, if the consensus of the board is that we go in there and do some cleaning up, why don't we let them start looking into the most advantageous way to do it? It could be dumpsters, it could be that Jay asks them to bring it out to the road and where he can get to it with his grappling hook thing. I mean, we got a way to get some of this done if we just let Miss Young know that we wanna do it. I mean, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's part of what we're doing. I think it's a different discussion on what the motion is on the floor at
It
the
is.
moment, yeah.
Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, along those lines, if you can get with Donnie Jordan, I believe the sheriff's department has an inmate crew that they use also that might assist in picking up some of that illegal stuff.
That'd be nice.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, the ayes have it. Okay. All right. Anything else about this item before we move on, about the business part? Okay. Any further general discussions about Port Authority?
I have something.
Okay, Mr. Rawls?
Let's see, Mike. Oh, Mike's here.
Get item C.
I was looking at the barge port the other day, looking at somebody's done work sometime in the recent past. You can see where there's been some soil disturbed around our water meters. Are we replacing our water meters right now? We're doing some kind of, okay, here comes the answer.
Yes, we went ahead and put all new remote reader heads on, or we're getting them done. I don't think they're all done yet.
Okay,
But we're putting new remote reader heads on those meters.
awesome. All right, there's that 4-inch line going to 160 Comfort Road. The meter is that far suspended.
Yeah, we haven't, I don't think that one's done yet. I think
Okay.
there's still 2 or 3 we got yet to do.
All right.
There was a total of 12, I think, out there, but we've got most of them done.
And one more question for you while you're at the podium. It's my understanding from the city of Palaca that the water pressure on the fire, that there's 2 separate lines. There's domestic and fire. Is that correct, your understanding?
I believe to that area, yes, there is.
All right, because if that's correct, the fire line is running over 100 pounds of pressure. I don't know if that's something that you might want to look at. It's,
We can take a look at it.
yeah. All right, thank you.
What area is that, Commissioner?
The port, the barge port.
Okay. Mr. Adamsat?
There, I actually.
I just
know,
wanted,
Sorry, hang on.
But if you know something about that issue,
No,
you
no,
got
no.
a different issue, okay, so, there's a head on that line. It drains downhill from up there where it's pumped up on by, Reed Street. That's why they had to put pressure limiters on the jail. Nobody knew about this until
Right.
such time as they turned the switch to turn the jail on, the new pods at the jail, and they turned off the old pods because there was so many leaks in there that it kept the pressure down at the jail in there. And when they turned it on and turned off the pods, it started blowing faucets off the
Yeah.
walls. So,
That's
they
my
had to put
concern.
a pressure limiter switch in there. I was under the understanding, and I don't remember who told me, that there was already a pressure limiter switch that reduced it down to the pressure that it's at now, because if you took that switch off, or that pressure limiter, I think that the pressure in the industrial park out there, or in the port out there, would be 150, 60 pounds.
Well, it's 105 to 110 on that static pressure on the, or gauge pressure on the, static pressure on the fire system. And that, when we're looking at this building, that was brought up, and I said it can't be right. There is an electric fire pump. The assumption was the fire pump, for some reason, has it real high, because normally you would see, 70, 80 pounds of pressure on a fire
Yeah,
system.
but in that area, because of the head pressure, it is high, and there's already a limiter on it to get it down to the 100 or the 105.
Well, the pressure reducing, if there's a pressure reducing device on there, it's not working because it's got, and unless, I don't know, I would think that going forward, because especially if we're replacing the domestic meters right now, on the fire side, we should take a look at eventually, not today, obviously, but put it on the to-do list for down the road, to put a PRZ on or adjust the PRZ to bring it down to about 80 pounds, unless there's a reason. I can tell you that our fire sprinkler company looked at it and went, we don't need that much pressure, and that could be problematic.
That's why they had, like I said, that's why they had to put a pressure reducer on the jail,
Yeah,
for that reason.
okay.
Mr. Adams, that?
So I just, because of my current condition, I just didn't want to lose sight of this because it came to my mind while I was listening to Mr. Troxel. The tendency when you outsource things is you outsource bigger things because there's cost savings. When you outsource like bigger projects and stuff, usually in-house you try to do these smaller projects, and you outsource a larger scale thing where it's someone can give us cost efficiencies by moving their people to work in a larger project at one time and not have to move equipment and people around. I'm really concerned, this is about the fourth, fifth time, and I understand you're understaffed and undermanned and you have 5 openings right now out there on our website. I get it. But to me, these are the things where we should be able to let Public Works do it and maybe offload some other things, or we have to give him the resources needed to be able to take on small projects.
You mean like replacing a PRZ?
No, from Public Works perspective, getting him the manpower he needs, so when little projects like this come up that could be done in a few days or whatever, that they can get done. And it's just something we need to talk about. So I understand the budget stuff is starting, and I'm assuming it's gonna be part of what he offers up for what he needs from his budget. We need to hire these 5 openings that we have, things like that. But at some point, it's inefficient to hire outside companies to do small, tiny projects. And the efficiencies usually are done on larger projects. So I just think it's a little bit backwards, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. That Mr. Turner?
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Commissioner Adams Act just said, but by the same token, like Mr. Troxel said, you have limited resources. You can spend those resources any way you please. But those limited resources, do we have them go mow grass at the industrial park, or do we have them go grade a road or mow a ditch or do things that, there's limited resources, and there's not enough money within the county to raise the resources where we could do every project and everything that comes along. So, I think we're gonna have to give Mr. Troxel the authority to make those calls as we go at the direction of the board, and keep in mind the 5 of us call him. I don't know about y'all, but I've got him on speed dial. So, so we're getting all these other things that come in that we have him tend to along with this too. So somewhere in this program, we've got to support him the best we can with the resources that he has. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on Port Authority? Then we're going to adjourn the Port Authority and get back to our workshop. And our first presenter today is Craig Mclean and Sam Carr, Waterways and Trails presentation.
If you could limit it to 15 minutes, please.
Did they move that too?
Down here.
I think most of you know me, Craig McLean. I'm the Trails Vice Chair of our county's Waterways and Trails Committee that advises the Board of County Commissioners. With me today is Sam Carr. He is our Vice Chair for the Waterways side of our committee. So, Chairman, it's good to be here. Thank you. And Commissioners, this is the first time I've spoken since Paul Adamsack was elected, so congratulations, sir. We'll try to keep this as brief as we can. We know the Commission had requested an update from us, and we wanted to provide that to you. First off, I think thank yous are important. The Board of County Commissioners over the years, I'd probably say about 30, has provided continued support for the trail development system that we're working on. I'd like to thank Commissioner Rawls again for leading our Waterways and Trails Committee, and many community leaders, City of Palatka, and of course the trail managers and staff that are taking care of our systems and mowing it, those kinds of things. I think it's also important in Putnam County, just a quick reminder that We ventured out on a lot of this is the glass is half full. We still see the glass is half full. So, you know, negative things come up, concerns about things, but I think the opportunities that we have in Putnam County for things like trail development, extension of trails, maintaining trails, bringing more tourism to the county is definitely there. It's a great opportunity, just a positive thought to share. The county in 2009 adopted a county trail master plan that's still in place. The Waterways and Trails Committee was initially established as a Trails Committee in 2008. It's always been led by a commissioner, and volunteer appointments are made by the Board of County Commissioners. At a certain point about 3 years ago, the Waterways Committee and the Trails Committee were merged, so that's why we now have that new name, Waterways and Trails. Would also like to take an opportunity. In the early days, in the late 90s and the 2000s, the Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in keeping our work moving forward and steering and guiding and being very helpful in that area. So just like to make sure we don't forget the Chamber's involvement in all of this. So and Dana's always been a blessing to work with. I think he's here somewhere. Thank you, Dana. And we also created about 8-9 years ago the Putnam Blueways and Trails CSO, which is a nonprofit organization that supports trails in the county. There's also a interlocal agreement between the CSO and the county commission. We recognize that that needs to be revised, updated, but basically this group provides volunteer support and has a focus on active recreation and trail use. As far as the trail update, we currently have about 30 miles of paved trail. Those are the real active cycling, rollerblading, bicycle riding trails, 100 plus miles of paddling trails, 75 plus miles of hiking, and about 40 miles of horseback trails. We do have the blessing of certain trail statuses in the county. We have the Florida National Scenic Trail that goes from basically the Everglades all the way up through the Panhandle. We have the Bartram Trail in Putnam, which is a national recreation trail that was led by the Bartram Group. It's a phenomenal resource. We also have some other things that most people at this point don't really think about, but we have other features like the Donald Ross Golf Trail, the Plaque and Murals Trail, and other heritage trails in the county that things that we could capitalize with our tourism. You've many times have seen the vision that has been laid out, so I won't drag you through this, but this is a system that we're trying to develop, and we have a good start on it today. On a paved trail update, the extension of the Hawthorne to Interlochen Trail, 16 miles, is under construction by DOT now. Folks that live in that area might have a little better update on that than I do. The Palatka Gap, which is the connection of the Palatka to Lake Butler Trail and the Palatka to St. Augustine Trail near the airport. The BCC ranked that application high. DOT followed suit and ranked it high. Unfortunately, with COVID and things, the funding has been limited, so we don't have any action on that. I do know that they're working on acquisition. On the St. Johns River Sea Loop, which is a 260-mile state-designated regional trail system, the Board of County Commissioners had authorized that for assessment. It ranked high, and again, that is sort of in the funding limbo at the moment. But there is current construction going on from the San Mateo area over the Dundas Creek Bridge, so we do have some positive movement there. The Springside Connector Trail, which runs right by the business park, you spent some time talking about the mowing on. Parks and Rec has done a wonderful job the last 6 months or so keeping that mowed and keeping it looking better, so I appreciate that. And I think it ties in with the business aspect there. As folks come to look at the business park, they also like to see amenities like trail systems and stuff, so the nicer that's maintained, the better it is for the business opportunities as well. The Springside Connector part along St. John's Avenue, Public Works is continuing to work on some design for that project, so we'll hear more about its construction in the near future. The Springside Trail Crossing at State Road 100, right of where the old grocery store is. DOT's purchased the land, and they're working with DOT and others on the design of how to have a safe crossing to connect those two trails. So that's essentially just a quick update on
Craig,
that.
before you leave that, can you go back to the Springside Trail Crossing? The county bought that property on the south side of 100.
Right.
And on both sides of Springside cutoff, if you will. So we own that now. So we got plans for that included in that trail crossing?
It will be part of that discussion. The county had suggested maybe about a year ago to put a trailhead there since the property was owned. We discouraged that as an advisory committee because we don't have a safe crossing, so let's not encourage a lot of crossing if we don't have to. So as we work with DOT on the design of that crossing, we'll bring back the trailhead part. And also keep in mind, if you go across the road where that little yellow house used to be,
Right.
DOT bought that entire strip to allow connections to happen, and there may be also some room in there for some parking. So, good question. Just again, a quick thing on the update on investment. You know, to date, the state's invested about $20 million in our paved trail system. We've had about $750,000 of volunteer professional staff services added to that. That's really helped garner those resources. Trail use, we're continuing to monitor that. We got about 3,400 trips on each trail per month. We have the southern tier of the United States bicycle route that comes through Palatka. That's about 500 annual trips of cycling tourists. These are the folks you see go down the road and they have the panniers on the side, and they're basically, they ride from St. Augustine through Palatka to San Diego or the other direction. So it's pretty serious cyclists. Events continue to grow. I think we're at fourth year of the Bartram Frolic. Trails help those things happen. We just recently held the second Life Half Marathon at Aetna Gravel Ride. Of course, we have the Iron Horse, and there's many more things. We even have a event we're planning for Flora Home this April. So we look forward to continuing.
That's going to happen again, Iron Horse?
Well, it'll be next 2021, February. It'll be a year from now.
Now, you said something new in Florhome.
Yeah, we have a new event associated with the Rails Trails Conservancy called the Florida Trails Day. We're going to hold that in Florhome on April 24th.
But you said Iron Horse would be in 2021. We are in
I'm at 2022.
2022,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
So no Iron Horse this year.
It was canceled for this year.
Okay, thank you.
And it's annually held in February. What you see in front of you right now is wayfinding work. We've had the main logo that you see out and about being used in different brochures and things like that. This is a culmination of some work that was done with some cost share funds from the Rails Trails Conservancy and the Putnam Blueways and Trails. The icons that you see below it are kind of the extension of that. Those will be the markers for different kinds of trails like hiking, birding, kayaking and such. And I'll get into a little bit more on that in just a minute. But essentially, the next slide, what you see is down in Volusia County, where in Titusville area, you have the merging of two trails. You see the blue trail coming across the screen with the red kind of a loop. The red loop is the river to sea route. And if you go up to the upper left-hand corner, that near where the word trail is, that's Putnam County. So what you essentially see is what the river to sea loop connects with the coast to coast trail, which is the aqua blue color. So you can see where we fit in this state trail system. What I wanted to share with you, part of that to see how we're connected, but also a part of that is this is the type of wayfinding signs you see where Ken Mahaffey is standing against that we'll need to eventually develop. You'll see at the bottom where it says river to sea loop. That's because that's the junction where the river to sea loop and the coast to coast trail come together. And we'll have several instances like that in Putnam County. A couple years ago, we were successful in getting Palatka designated as a Florida trail town. We've been excited about that. Many amenities that you know that we have that support trails, and et cetera. The next two images, what you see, this is our general locator map of how to find the trail systems in Putnam County. And this is a map of the downtown trail town system. Once you're down at the waterfront, how to find your way to the trail system and also find your way to businesses and support facilities. Robbie Correa is here with us today. She is the chair of the Trail Town Committee. We appreciate her help with keeping that work moving forward. This is just simply a graphic showing the southern tier of the United States bike route that brings folks through Palatka. So again, about 500 folks. As we spent a little longer than a year ago, but we had two workshops talking on maintenance the importance of that moving forward. At that December 2019, the BCC agreed to maintain the Palatka Gap and also the sections of the St. Johns River Sea Loop south of East Palatka. Both of those have ranked well with the state of Florida DOT. So those are moving forward, hopefully with funding breaking loose soon, some of that work can get started. The Putnam Blueways and Trails, or I maybe should back up just a hair, at those workshops, we were discussing alternatives to plan ahead to be ready for that 12 to 15 year when that next chunk of miles would be paved. And with the county taking on the maintenance responsibility, we threw out different ideas. And one of those was to establish a trust fund to build up to that time. Putnam Blueways and Trails CSO has established their trust fund, and I believe they're at about $6,500 in that trust fund. And then the Board of County Commissioners, I think Commissioner Harvey, you had mentioned that you wanted to work towards that. And it's just a reminder that we need to have that conversation and work with the county to help you get the trust fund established on the county side. I'm not going to talk a lot about this subject, but I wanted folks to be aware of it. We continue to have dangerous dogs on the trails. We've had one gentleman that was treed for over an hour until dark set in and the dogs took off. Those kinds of things. We'll need to have a continuing dialogue on that and how to make it better, how to make improvements. So I just wanted you to be aware that the trails community are concerned. Many folks are avoiding areas, and folks from outside our community, St. Augustine, Jacksonville, Gainesville, follow our pages, so they see every time there's a dog issue, they see it and they want to know where it is so they can avoid those areas, which means they might avoid a trip or lunch or stay over in Putnam County. I'm going to touch briefly on priorities and I'll pass the baton over to Sam. First, again, thank you. The request that I listed out here in bullets is one, to continue, which are things that you've already been working on, but to lead the Putnam Trail system through the St. Johns River to Sea Loop, the Gainesville to Palatka Trail, closing the Palatka Gap, the Bartram Trail in Putnam County, which is again a national recreational trail. It's a request to have the county adopt a resolution for Putnam to be part of the Bartram Trail Conference affiliate or to be an affiliate. Use trails as a component of our tourism marketing plan. Produce a trails wayfinding website and paper map. Really help people find where we are and how to use our resources. Produce fund a completion of our wayfinding plan. The wayfinding plan that we started was very conceptual, but we really need to take it to the next step so we know exactly what our signs would be and where we would put them and the relationships, because every time you put a sign up, you have to ask the landowner for permission, so there's a little bit of process with that. Again, establish the county's trail maintenance trust fund. One thing that we've talked about with the maintenance issue and we've kicked around at our Waterways committee meetings, we feel it would be beneficial to transfer trail maintenance all to Parks Recreation. Currently, Public Works manages about 3 miles and Public Works manages about 3. So we're thinking it might just behoove ourselves to transfer it to the recreational side of things. And then consider each time that we do a legislative document that we include a part on trails. Even if they're asking on only like 2 bill opportunities, whatever, would be good to have a little narrative on there about the importance of our trail system and what we're doing to build it. So just plant that seed, and with that, I'll transfer the baton over to Sam. And the priorities and requests to the BCC slide will be at the end of his talk, so if you have questions on details with that, we can get into that.
Well, Craig, before you leave, Commissioner Rawls has a question for you.
Okay.
Actually, more of a statement. Thank you for keeping it at just under 15 minutes.
Whoa, 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 we're not done yet.
No, you said, when I said, you said Craig, you said,
No,
you said Craig.
that's not what I said.
14 minutes.
Item A.
We had a little bet going.
You did good though, Craig, thank you. Mr. Adamsack.
Craig, the one thing you didn't mention was, and maybe it's because you weren't at the last Putnam Trails meeting, but there was an exciting event that was mentioned where the people from the, where all the older people live in the south there from.
The villages.
The villages were coming in
The South.
with the
We're familiar with
dual
Georgetown.
bikes basically, and they're having a big event that I think, how many people were coming into the county for that? 200? 100?
Be 100 tandem bicycles.
110 bicycles,
Which
2
means
people
200
per
people.
bicycle. And, you know, that's gonna fill up one of our hotels. That's a big event, and that is only happening because we have trails.
We gotta have you talking to the microphone, Robbie.
Successfully welcome them,
Robbie.
make them feel comfortable here and give them things to do. They are planning to come back in the fall with an additional 100 tandem bike riders from the villages. So we'll have 200 here in the fall.
Heck, yeah, Craig.
Do we want that kind of people in our county?
If they bring,
We are those kind of people.
if they bring
Better
money-
not be those kind of people in the village.
I just didn't know if the rest of the commission was aware of that, but that is very exciting from my
Yeah.
perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that here in a second, but
So-
thank you.
Since Robbie's up here, last night, is it my turn, sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. Last night at the CRA meeting, there was a brief discussion regarding the importance of the Trail Town designation in regards to what's happening downtown with the CRA plan. So I would definitely be in touch with, I don't know how much communication you have with the city and their staff, but talk to Terrell Hill and Jonathan Griffith, because that was discussed with our new CRA plan. Would it help if you had a letter of support from us for the GAP initiative to the state, or do you think COVID has just got everything slowed down, or?
That would be good. I'm just now starting a dialogue with Representative Payne on that to see what kind of initiative that he's comfortable maybe leading. And with that, that might spawn, the need for a support letter of some degree. And I know DOT's told us the last few years that a letter from the commission chairman on letterhead means a lot to them. We can talk to them, and even if a commissioner's in a room on a subject, they see it, but they really like a good paper letter. It's made a difference on the State Road 100 crossing in Springside. We actually, penned a letter. The commission agreed at a workshop. I think Terry was chairing that, and they've really embraced that, not only to the tune where they've turned around and bought the north side without an official request. So I thought that was.
Well, Commissioner Turner's a very powerful man, and I don't think I'm near as powerful as he is.
So I think that's a good point, though, and once I get that dialogue with Representative Payne started, then I'll maybe send a request over.
Then I got, you mentioned wayfinding signage. Is that not something that we can use TDC dollars for? Have you looked into that, or is there a way you could look into see if there's a way we could leverage some of that to pay for the signage? Because I think the other Saturday, there was motorcycles, there was Jeeps, a lot of Jeeps, and a lot of bicycles in town. It was very obvious. So I think we really need to start capitalizing on that and being able to direct people to different areas. The CRA is also doing the same thing with wayfinding. I guess my question would be, is there any way you can look into that, or,
Well,
how
yeah,
can we help you get that done?
One set of kudos to the city is they put out a request to us. They, of course, put in the signs at the kiosk, which are wonderful, and then they actually put in a series of wayfinding signs along the trail system through town, so that was an added plus. And I'll get a dialogue started with the chamber. Dana and I actually talked about signs when she first walked in the room, so we'll continue that dialogue and report back.
The question, I guess where I'm going is, how do you start diverting people off the bicycle trail to go eat or go to the ravines or go to another place besides, you mentioned, I've never heard it called that before, but the Mural Trails. So is there a way, as they're starting to make their approach into Palatka, that some of these things are off? Because when you drive down the interstate, before you come up to an exit, you've got a wayfinding sign that tells you what's coming up and which direction to turn.
Well, the large kiosk signs at the clock tower
Right.
describe ravine gardens, describe things like the Mural Trails, has a small map of downtown with the amenities on it, so that's a good start. And then there are some wayfinding signs that the city just put up pointing the direction to things like the ravines, those kind of features, so we just continue
I'm talking outside.
outside. Well, and a lot part nowadays with the electronic means, most folks are electronic. That's where I think the large part of the website tool comes in hand, where people have it remotely, they can see it. We could improve the signs coming in each direction on the main trail before you hit the bridge, and even at the base of each bridge. we could enhance those a bit. There's some tight turns there, but that's, again, getting into the weeds a bit, but it's a good idea to,
Whatever happened to the GPS wayfinding that was,
we're working on a collaborative project with the STEM program in QI Roberts School. Our STEM mentor stepped out of the project due to some family medical issues, and that project, for most part, has fallen to the wayside, unfortunately. But we were excited at the time. Just
any way to revive that or get someone else to pick that up and run with it and get it completed?
potentially, we could explore if the county's able to fit it into their current IT staffing. That's an option. It could be a consulting option.
Well, that's a marketing thing, isn't it? Where,
Well, designing and setting up the website, but you need kind of a blend of marketing expertise and website design to make that.
where I'm going is leveraging some of the TDC dollars to get this done. So as folks are coming in, if they're wondering where they are, they look on their phone, on their GPS, and it says coming up is blank. I mean, you got the Highway 19 corridor is getting more restaurants. We're getting a Checkers here soon. You know, it may divert them over there, but if they don't know that there's a Checkers on Krill Avenue, then they would never ride over there.
The Bartram Trail site of Florida has an agreement with the Bartram Trail Conference, who has an agreement with Stetson University. And so this summer, Stetson University will be building the type of things that you're talking about. These are called story maps.
Right.
And so the actual Putnam County was the very first story map created by the Office of Greenways and Trails. And it's been on the website for years, but we've never used it or anything like that. And they're revising that as we speak. So with that expertise and with that knowledge, then we should be able to do exactly what you're talking about. So the Stetson University project starts in May, and will go to September, and certainly Putnam County will be part of that.
But we're starting our budget talks right now, so it
Yeah.
might be a good time to get in. But I would highly encourage you to see.
Right. So a couple of things that have happened, though, is that we, Putnam Blueways and Trails went out and bought 10 of the 2 designations that we have here in Putnam County. One is Trail Town, and the other one is the Paddling Blueway, or Waterway, Blueways community. And so we received the Blueways community designation in 2011, and we never put up one sign telling anybody we did it. Now, the Trail Town sign, we did create the kiosk downtown, but we also, Putnam Blueways and Trails has gone out and bought highway grade signs, and they're waiting to be put up. So we could use Public Works help to get those signs up around the thing. The city already has their copies, and they'll be putting them up on their wayfinding signs downtown Palatka. So some of that's for the Waterways, and that's for Trail Town. Okay, but as far as wayfinding goes, the wayfinding that Palatka has done is really, in my opinion, very good. And Robbie was involved with all of that from day one. And so that's been a long time project that they've got going. So as far as directing people to different sites and everything like that, that's what those wayfinding signs were for. And I don't know if you've been there and counted them, but I did. There's a bunch of them. I mean, they're all over the place. And so I think the city has done a very good job. The county hasn't done anything.
Right.
So that's where we are. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is what can we do at this juncture? You know, you're talking about the Trail Town and
Yeah.
the paddling and,
Right.
and bicycles, and I turned around and looked back here, and I was wondering if we had a big bicycle and paddling trail logo behind us, you know, because that's marketing.
That's right.
And this is
That's
part
exactly
of
what it is.
part of our identity as a community, and it's what we just talked about last week in our comprehensive plan is embracing that.
Yep.
It's very clean. It's
Right.
COVID-proof, if you will. And so, what can we do to help you?
I'll tell you a quick story. So I was in Gainesville, Florida, and I received an email from the head of the Department of the Interior of the United States. She said, "Congratulations, Mr. Carr. The Bartram Trail in Putnam County is now a national recreation trail." And you know the first thing that I said to myself? Oh no, are we ready?
Right.
And so at that point in time, I wrote manifesto saying this is what we ought to do, and wayfinding and all that kind of stuff was part of that, but that was years ago, so we still haven't done it.
So what can we do?
We need to start that. We need to start putting that up, telling people that they're welcome to come to Putnam County and there's stuff to do here. We don't do that well at all. We have bass tournaments, that's great, but the other 364 days a year, people are riding in over that trail and over the bridge and all. I went by the trailhead there in St. Augustine the other day. There were 20 cars parked at the trailhead. This was on a Sunday afternoon. Now that trailhead is a dead end. They've got to go somewhere. You know where the other end of that trail is? Downtown Pulaski.
Yeah.
And that's where they're coming to. And if you go out there on a weekend, they're out there. I saw 3 going over the bridge today. So,
Sam, Mr. Turner has a question.
okay, sorry.
Yeah, the only thing I was, trying to expand a little bit on the app present thing, it seems to me like not people our age, Sam, but people younger than
Yeah.
us use the apps is
Yep.
what they use now. So I'm wondering, would it be allowable, and Dana, I just need you to maybe shake your head yes or no or whatever, would it be allowable to use TDC funds to help for an app? Because that would be aimed at outside people. Would that be allowable, you think, to use TDC funds to help develop an app to bring in outside people?
Well, the shaking of the head did not work, did it?
No?
Sam, if you'll let Dana speak for just a moment.
Yeah. Commissioner Turner, I mean, I believe so, but I think, I always refer back to the county attorney if it's in that gray area, but marketing is definitely what we're charged with doing, and as
I
long
got a
as,
copy of the ordinance on my desk, you want to get it?
I'll just tell you yes.
yeah, as long as we follow purchasing procedures, and get quotes and the right kind of thing, yes, I mean, we've been exploring some different mapping tools.
When
That-
does your TDC meet the next time?
Next week.
We have a meeting in a week, and then we have a,
Could I request that it be talked about at the TDC meeting? to find
Absolutely.
out? I know, Mr.
Good use
Chairman,
of
you're
funds.
the chairman
I am.
of TDC, but, so maybe I could make the request to you that that be talked about as part of their agenda,
Yep, I agree.
what kind of resources I think it's a great idea, and I think,
But
we
it
can
is.
hang signs if y'all want to, I get it, but the generation behind us doesn't read signs, they look at apps, and they look at GPS routes, and they do.
That's what the story map.
well, we previously did do a lot
If we're
of,
gonna put money in this, personally, I think I'd like to see if we couldn't do an app development or something that helps us with some of these different trails.
yes.
And I think we probably have some school people that, I know Bailey's over there writing real furiously, but I'm sure there's people
Companies and
younger
there's
than us.
kids.
Or
We've
Eagle
also
Scout
visited
Project, or I don't know the name.
wayfinding as well for the countywide and mapped up different places those signs should be. And then at the time, that kind of was identified as something we couldn't use because the tourists were already here. But I think that could take another look as well, because I think as the tourism and marketing entity, when people are here for whatever reason, it does market to them something they didn't know about. So that's what we were talking about earlier with both Ken, and now I've talked to Craig, that opportunity to maybe do some wayfinding signs throughout the county, not just the city of Pulaski, because that,
Just seems to me like if we could figure out a way to do an app, wherever that way may be, that it would be a recurring thing. And so you put up a sign, if you see the sign, you see it, fine, I get it. But unless you drive by the sign, you can't see it. If you've got an app that somebody can download, they can download it from Wisconsin and plan their trip here, so, or wherever. So, I just think that that's a recurring thing that could be added to later and whatever, and that would be even more valuable than just signage.
yeah, I agree, and for both wayfinding and the app.
We'll talk about that
Absolutely.
next week.
Put it on the agenda.
Good, thank you. Robbie, you want to,
Yes, just to make a comment, there is a company, it's actually was a gentleman in Orlando that developed it, or actually Sanford, Ron Cook. It's called Districts, the app, DISTRX. As a former Main Street community, and because we're revitalized historic Palatka now, we have that app available to us free, and it's also free to consumers to load. And you can put maps on it, you can put tours on it, you can put shops, stores, all sorts of locations downtown, and we have that already. it can be embellished and added to make it more useful for everybody, and part of the key will be marketing it to get people to download that app. But Ron is also good about coming up to talk about it and how to expand our use of it, and also good as a resource to help us with that. So it's already there, rather than reinventing the
It
wheel.
may be that that's the way y'all decide to go, is use an existing platform and try to get them to work on it with you. I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe if it's an opportunity that you would like to participate in, to get Mr. Cook up here at some point for a workshop, to kind of explain it and go over it and maybe help with it.
Or,
We could just get our own app.
Waterways and Trails.
yeah, hang on a minute, Mr. Rawls has a question.
No, I just want to say, I'm really enjoying the way this conversation is going and the direction it's going, because we've been locked up for a year, and it just opened, my eyes were open the other day. My wife and I went to Buc-ee's. It's the third Buc-ee's we've been in, one in Texas, one in Alabama, now one in Florida. But what's amazing is all the people that are getting out on the weekends. It's like you can tell people are really wanting to get out, and they're coming here. And I mentioned
Tried to get
it.
in the ravines last Sunday. Did anybody try?
No.
You couldn't get in.
I just noticed.
The roads
that
were stopped.
The traffic around
Yeah,
town, and
that's
I live in town. The traffic was really good to see the traffic. After lunch today, when I went to come across the street, there's several motorcycles driving by. We can literally capitalize on this if we have a way to take them off of the road and into one of our businesses, spend a few dollars, spend some time in Putnam County. I mean, they're already enjoying it just driving through, but if we can slow down long enough to spend some money here, that would be helpful. But we have to offer something. There's got to be something. Anyways, if we don't get our marketing started sooner than later, we're going to be behind the eight ball. Right now, I think we're a little bit ahead, if anything, because we're coming out of COVID. The red button was hit and everything stopped. Now the economic engines are starting to crank a little bit. We have, if we play our cards right.
Craig, I have a question for you. Concerning the request to move the maintenance from Public Works to Parks and Rec, have you went to the Parks and Rec Committee and talked to them about that?
No, it's,
And what that would look like? Because now's budget time. It would just be a matter of Mr. Troxel going, yeah, we spent this. Mr. Stevens, if he's willing, and the committee's willing to go, yeah, we'll take on that for this. Or we need more equipment to do. I don't know the answer, but I would encourage you to go to Parks and Rec and put that on the agenda.
yeah, definitely, that's a good idea. At this point, it's really exploratory. It seems like a good idea in our committee discussion, so I'll definitely look into that. On the subject of folks wanting to get outdoors, January 16th, we held the second annual Life Half Marathon and 5K and the Aetna Gravel and Social Bike Ride Series. My bike ride participants was up 50%, and the runners were up 20% in the middle of COVID with 5 weeks of planning. I held off because of COVID, and then once I decided to move forward, my goal with the event, which raises money for the Women's Resource Center, so you kind of see how trails help other things, my goal was to break even, and I cleared $5,000. So
It just
people
showed-
are just dying.
And you brought
Excuse me.
people to Putnam County.
Well, and it was
People really want to get outside.
it was a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
I mean, my Lord.
A little chilly.
It was cool, but it was a gorgeous day.
And thanks for
Sam, do you have
volunteering
anything
too.
that you need to add, Mr. Carr, or are you about
Well, I
to?
haven't made my presentation yet.
Well,
So as far as Waterways goes,
37.
I can be really fast, trust me. All right, so as far as the Waterways, part of the Waterways and Trails Committee, some of the things that we've done in the past 12 months is we verified all the public boat ramps in Putnam County with FWC to make sure that they're documented and so forth. We discussed concerns about the loss of Buzzard Island and San Mateo, several different ways. We also reviewed the State of the River report that was produced by the St. Johns River Keeper. Good news is, it ain't bad, and it's not worse. It's actually better, so that's good news. And we assisted with the revival of the Florida Paddling Trails Blueway. Again, I mentioned 2011, this was designated, and so Putnam Blueways and Trails went out and bought the appropriate signs that we can put up now to designate that in Putnam County. We're going to need help from Public Works to get that done, but the signs are all purchased and ready to go. So that's something that Blueways and Trails did. And we're assisting in the mapping project for Putnam County's trails. with the Office of Greenways and Trails, Putnam Blueways and Trails, and Revitalize Downtown Palatka. What that means is that the guy that does the SCORP report is also the guy that is in charge of documenting all of the recreational activities here. So we have contacted them, and Greenways and Trails has offered us their mapping person to help us design these maps for people who come to Palatka and know where to go. So that's an ongoing thing, and it's something that's actually happening. The first draft of it will be here fairly soon. And again, that all is coming out of the Waterways and Trails Committee. So that is what we're doing.
All right,
And-
before you go to the next slide.
Okay.
Your ask is for us to allow Public Works to put up signs. How many signs are there?
I've got 10.
And do you know the locations of where they need to go?
I know the ways where I'd like for them to go. You know, the big blue signs that said Putnam, welcome to Putnam County? Put one under each one of those signs. And they're highway approved and all that kind of stuff by the same guy that makes signs.
Mr. Trout, so you got 2 sign guys, right, or 1? All right, go ahead, Mr. Carr.
So, what should I do? Bring them over?
No, just Mr. Carr, come on.
Okay, all right, all right,
We'll
good
talk.
enough.
I'll keep this in.
So the Putnam, the Bartram Trail in Putnam County, I want to go back to that because that entity was began in this committee, and it was began in 2012, and it started as the Bartram Trail Committee in Putnam County by Commissioner Nancy Harris is the one who started that thing. And it was funded in 2013 by the Florida Humanities Council grant in conjunction with the county and the city as part of that grant. And so that was $30,000, and that's what built the Bartram Trail in Putnam County. It became a National Recreation Trail in 2010, started Palatka's St. John's River Bartram Frolic Festival in 2017. The next one will be April the 17th and 18th here in Palatka. So we're planning on doing that in Palatka. A lot of recreational events. The educational event that we always do with it occurred in November, and we spoke to 800 second graders in Putnam County over a whole week long, and it was an interesting experience. We did it virtually, so it was really, really neat that we were able to do that. And we did that using the funds from the CARES Act. So we appreciate the county giving us access to that. So we turned that into an educational event, and we're also going to turn it into helping us conduct the frolic in April. So we formed into a standalone 501c3 in 2019. Now it's called the Bartram Trail Society of Florida. And the Bartram Trail Society of Florida, so it's our sphere of influence has exceeded Putnam County, and we started talking to these other counties about what we have done here in Putnam County. And this is, it's, you know, it has grown remarkably, and it's taking all of my time. This is what the Bartram Trail in Putnam County looks like. This is the map and all, and there's 3 of these kiosks around the county. These are the trail markers. If you're out on the river, you see these white signs, you wonder what they are. They're actually marking the Bartram Trail in Putnam County, and they're all part of the National Recreation Trail. So that's what we've got. This is a rendition of what is coming. So you see where Palatka is there, where we have our Bartram Trail. Well, Duval County signed on a year ago to do the same thing. So they're going to be establishing the Duval County Bartram Trail. Next is St. Johns County. Their county commission just passed a resolution to do that less than a month ago. Volusia County has already done it. And so they already have the brochure and all that kind of stuff done. And we just got word last week that Alachua County through the Paynes Prairie Reserve is going to establish the Bartram Trail there. So this is a lot more than we had planned. But it's amazing. The whole St. Johns River is covered. So the only Florida county that we would need to get is Escambia County out in Pensacola, and then the whole state is part of the Bartram Trail. Universal, which is going to be called the Bartram Trail Heritage Corridor, and that's 2,500 miles all the way across the United States. So we're all part of that. So that's what has happened to us. So we've had St. Johns County and Duval County have come to town to see how we did it and all that kind of good stuff, and we're working on that with them. So that's really cool. So it's becoming very famous. The next initiative, though, that the Waterways, part of the Waterways Committee is going to be taking up is vetting the Great Florida Riverway project. And I've got a book here, and I'll give it to you guys. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But basically what it is done is a group of students in the architectural school at University of Florida put together an example of potential recreational assets for the Great Florida Waterway. Now, part of and so this is just one example here. And there are, I think, 6 of these projects that they're talking about. And the example here is what they would do at the Rodman Recreation Area. This is what it looks like on the left, and this is some of the infrastructure that they would add on the right as part of that. And then the other part that I'm excited about is the Kirkpatrick Outdoor Center at Buckman Locks, which would be a whole resource center that would include hunting and fishing and skeet shooting and the whole 9 yards out there. That's their concept. And the first part of it would be adding boat ramps onto the barge canal there down at the end of the area there where all the riffraff is. And so that would be the first thing that we do, so which would provide river access in that part of the county, and I think it would be wonderful. So this whole thing is a project that is being presented to the state, and our committee has decided to take it on and to make sure that Putnam County is represented in this initiative. And so that's my story, and that's all I've got to say about that. So he mentioned the request, and the only request that I'm other than he's got here, and I think he even put it in here, is all of these other counties have signed up to become affiliates of the Bartram Trail Conference, which means that we will share information. We will share the county's logo, and they can use our logo on their websites and in their promotion as well. And so it doesn't cost anything. It's non-binding, and you can change it any way you want to. But St. Augustine signed up for it, Duval, and so we're headed. And Alachua County's already signed up for it. I just haven't asked you guys yet, but I will. Okay, so it's just
Mr. Rawls?
Okay.
I just want to say, and I thank you to you and Craig and everybody else that has taken your personal time, and this is just a great citizens initiative that started a long time ago. And I told Craig and I told Sam, at some point someone needs to do a timeline and literally create one to show, because when you sit here and listen to this, it just sounds like a lot of work was done in a short period of time, but this has been going on for over a decade, and I think it really needs to be memorialized. And Craig just held up 3 fingers. So 30 years, this is something that's remarkable, and I think that the accolades are not enough, but folks need to see what people can do, and this is government not in action. This is citizens in action. You guys have really created something, and Sam, you said you're amazed at how big the Bartram Trail thing turns into, and it kind of reminded me of when Skeet Alford said that they started hog walling, and it grew into something that they never anticipated. So here you've created a cottage industry out of nothing, and it's blown up into this huge, potentially huge revenue source for the taxpayers and a recreational source as well. And
Right.
so it's but one question I asked there, and I kind of chuckled when I saw those 2 pictures that you put up there. Is there anything missing in those pictures, or am I looking at them wrong? It looked like there was a landmass in the middle of the canal, and then for some reason, I don't see the spillway in the circled area.
No, the idea that there's a spillway on the left, that's the before picture.
Yeah.
And the other one is an artist's rendition of the addition that you would have, the fishing pier there and all, and then there's also a restaurant or an
With the
outfitter.
spillway included, or is that?
This is part of the Rodman
See it.
recreational area proposal.
Okay.
Right.
Just
And
open
so
the book,
with
too.
the funds, yeah,
And-
the book explains it a lot better than I intend
You,
to.
you mentioned Scorp.
Right.
And that was something that you just kind of glazed over, but
Yep.
I think that really requires a little more conversation with the commission
Okay.
so they can know what's available.
Okay.
And what we can be doing.
Okay, so the Parks and Rec Department is connected with the Scorp rider. And so now the Scorp, what is it? I forget.
State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation.
State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. They do this every 5 years, and they're currently changing the process in the state of Florida. So we've always been included in Northeast Florida's Scorp Comprehensive Plan. They're doing it by county now. And so the first, they contacted us saying, okay, we'd like to come to town. And the Parks and Rec Department that was going to host the guy and all, and unfortunately he had to quarantine for that period of time. So we're still working with him on it. But basically what that does is that it gives us points when we do any kind of grant request and all of this kind of stuff.
Right.
And when we saw the list of what they have for Putnam County, there was nothing
Nothing.
about hunting on there.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Dan, we need to start wrapping this up.
Okay, no
We're
problem.
at almost
Okay.
the hour mark right now.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Nothing with boat
Commissioner
ramps and all that kind of stuff. So we're deficient when it comes to the Scorp version of what Putnam County is. But good news is, they're only going to look at, and they're actually starting with us in this process.
The reason I wanted you to bring that out is for everybody's edification. This is something that I think as a commission, we need to direct staff to get involved with. Tess is familiar with the gentleman. He's willing to come in and talk to us at the Waterways and Trails meeting. But I really think that this is something that will help correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but would it help you guys to have this? It's free for us. And then it gives us the extra points that we need for consideration for grant money and extra things in the county. I just think that we need to give the staff permission or direction to this thing as complete as possible and outline every single activity that we have, because you saw that one picture that Craig put up that had the bird watching and the hiking and all that. All that needs to be in that Scorp.
All right, Mr. Turner?
Okay, I'm gonna let the elephant out of the room.
Here comes the white elephant.
No, it's,
So you're advocating we tear out Rodman to do this because that's what it's saying in this book right
No.
here that you
Well,
just
that's-
gave me?
it's a lot, yeah.
That's what it says in here, dude.
He's not
Read the
advocating
book.
for it.
No, I'm saying that
I
our
hear.
committee needs to vet this. That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah, I had the same reaction you did. I saw that, that's why I said, is there something missing? I laughed out loud if you guys didn't hear it when I saw that. 'cause
No,
the
I-
first thing in my mind-
my main concern is that if this initiative is moving forward, okay, and we're not involved with,
Okay, you need to come to the microphone if you're going to speak.
oh, I'm sorry. If this initiative is moving forward, then Putnam County needs to get what it can get out of it. That's my main concerns. And so it's just like the plan that was written, I want to say it was 2007 or so, when the Cross Florida Greenway wrote a whole comprehensive plan on here are the assets and the recreational assets that we're going to have. Well, when you look at that, they had a list of assets with restoration and without restoration.
All right, we need to move on.
Okay,
Mr. Adamsack?
okay.
He's kind of was getting to the answer of what I was gonna ask, because I was aware of the other document, so I prefer the other document that gives examples of
Yeah.
with the dam there and without the dam there, because we need to be prepared either way. Because
Yeah.
I don't think we have the end authority to say whether the dam stays or not. We can use our
Correct.
political clout to try to influence that, but I don't think we have the end authority.
Right.
But I like that document better than this at a first glance, just because of that picture. Because it does give examples, Larry, in that other document, and only because I saw it before, where there is things basically with the dam, how you move forward, and without the dam. And that's what we need to be looking at, and balancing that.
Good.
The other point I
And I'm
want to
gonna
say
end with
is when
this.
you
I'm
look
gonna
at,
end with this, okay?
all right, when you look
There's
at.
not gonna be a committee, and if I'm a commissioner, that's gonna go against what the commissioners are trying to do. And I think, honestly, you have a good scope of work, but it needs to be refined. Because I think in some cases, you stepped outside your boundaries, frankly, in my opinion. And I think you went against what our comprehensive plan says and everything else that we're trying to do here. Not one comment about keeping Robin, and that, when I opened it, went right to getting rid of all.
Well, now-
Sam, I'm gonna close with this, 21 billion gallons of fresh water, 19 feet above sea level. End of story.
And Larry's going
Thank
to drink
you.
out of it.
Thank you for your comments
That's
today.
science.
And Craig, if you'll get back with us on that, we appreciate it.
I want to give you guys a hand.
Yeah, I
and just
agree.
say, this is very, very informative, and especially now that we're fixing to start off our budget season. You know, things like you're talking about need to be taken into consideration. So.
All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. You won.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
How long did he have?
All right, next item on the agenda is item B, Administration, Georgetown Riverfront Park Management. Kevin, do you want to come up, or are we doing that?
I got it.
You got it.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Chairman, staff is asking the board to allow us to work with FCT, which is Florida Communities Trust, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund to attempt to find equal alternatives that are viable and sustainable for the management plan to become into compliance.
I didn't hear anything you said.
She asked if she could.
You have your microphone turned on?
I'll try again, sir. Staff is asking the board for permission to work directly with the Florida Communities Trust and the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which are the two entities that drive our management plan for the Georgetown Park.
Need a motion or consent?
Hang on.
I heard the rest of it.
Okay.
Microphone, Turner.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything you said, sir.
It's a good thing I'm on television, Jacob.
All right, hang on. Commissioner Pickens has this light on. Commissioner Pickens?
I heard what she said. And I don't know if Kevin wants to come up and add anything, but as you know, what has been happening is David Gerard has been doing a lot of research. And actually, Jim Toronto also, we met with Water Management, discussed with them about moving this project forward. It's going to be a very expensive project. I think it's still viable, but I do believe we're to the point where we need to step back and see where we are with this management plan and try to bring it into compliance so we will be able to, moving forward, be able to apply for grants and get some assistance in this. So I just wanted to add that before we maybe start a discussion.
No, I agree, and I'm going to say I met with Julianne and went over this the other day, and we are into this. There's no doubt, and these two entities help fund the purchase of that. So Julianne, I'm going to be honest with you. You got this commissioner, whatever you can do to make this thing either tidy it up and put a bow on it and bring it back to us, or the opposite. Something's got to happen down there, and we want something to happen down there. I would love nothing better than them to say, yeah, we're going to work with you. Here's what we can do. I would love that to happen. So, Mr. Turner, you have your light on?
Yes, sir. You said part of what I was gonna say. This thing needs to move forward. I hope they won't be as big an obstacle as they were at 9 Mile in trying to help us get to where we need to be on Tanglewood, Tanglewild.
Wow.
And so,
9 Mile.
9 Mile, no, I'm talking about the one in Georgetown. I'm hoping that that they will talk to us some, or that they will be, because that one there, we're too invested in that property to turn around at this point and give it back. It's not like 9 Mile where nothing was ever done, you know, other than the $3,000 that shouldn't have been spent on it, but was. Oh, you didn't, I didn't even get a smile out of you. Oh, okay.
I missed that too.
I'm just kidding with you. Anyhow, hopefully they'll go on and deal with us a little bit. You know, I don't know where we are on the boat ramp, or if it's been determined that it's just not a feasible location yet, or they're still working on it, and maybe we can put it there. I still think if it can be put there, that it would be an excellent location to put a boat ramp down there on that piece of property. So if we have to put in, they say, a temporary soft launch for kayaks, or we have to spend a little money to make it grant approvable again for the next step, then I say we need to just try to figure out a way to do it. Enter into negotiations, try to come up with something that you possibly can, and let's move forward, I think.
Yeah. Commissioner Pickens?
Oh, I thought items, okay, yeah.
He removed his light.
Okay, I think where water management was, that if we could give them a footprint, then they would tell us exactly what we were going to have to do. But I think it'd be so cost so much that I don't know that we can move forward with it. So I think it can still be put there. But I think that as an agreement with the rest of the board, that we look forward to work with these two agencies that got us the property and get back in compliance. That's the biggest thing. And I was shocked when Kevin said that we were not in compliance. I wouldn't have voted to put that damn playground equipment there if I didn't think it was going to put us back in compliance. We wouldn't have that thing there.
And Commissioner,
You know.
if I may, I think maybe we can get there. Maybe we can get there.
I think we can, especially
You know, I
talking to
think that
Julianne,
the
there's a lot of,
commission, other than Commissioner Adams' act, I don't think he was here when we discussed it, but, I think the commission has been pretty clear that they want to try to build a boat ramp there
Exactly.
if we can, and if we can find the money, and if we can do it, and that's the reason why we've been paying for the maintenance at the boat ramps out of general fund or out of different funding, because we want to preserve that money in the fishing fund for a capital improvement, possibly a boat ramp at that area. So, you know, and it may be we could come up with a little more on top of it too, you know. So I don't know what if we're talking about $1 million, we're gonna have to hunt a grant. If we're talking about, I think they got 300 in the fishing fund, and if we could do it for that plus some, then, you know, it may be we could get there, you know, I don't know. 400 is what you think, Jeff? I think that's doable. 300's in the fishing fund. So, yes, it's gonna cost a lot, but the first thing to do is, would that make us compliant if we put in a boat ramp?
no, and I don't think so. So I think moving forward for Julianne and maybe Kevin and myself to work with these people and see exactly what we can do and knock some of them out and then get back in compliance and then go for the boat ramp, where we can apply for some grants to go along with the money that we got.
I agree. If we can make that, yeah. Mr. Rawls?
I think Paul had his light on first.
No, you were
Okay.
first. and then-
Okay. Can we revise the plan? Will they allow us to revise the plan now?
We don't know that, and see
I think that'd be,
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Well, hang on
I'm
just-
not trying to be argumentative, I'm just trying to be informative.
Right.
They wouldn't let us redo any of the plan on 9 Mile, nothing.
Well-
It's this or none.
I think the low-hanging fruit is we ask them, if we, tell them what's going on. When the plan was written, there was an unforeseen condition, wetlands. They should understand that, and we need to modify the plan, because we're not gonna get there, if we have to go through wetlands. It's just not gonna happen.
And we're not gonna know if we don't ask,
Right.
you know.
So ask if we can revise the plan. That's the low-hanging fruit. And then the other one is, the Drayton Island boat ramp, is it,
Okay, hang on. Let's stay with this one right now.
no, I'm saying, well, is it not possible to, since we're fixing to redo that one, can that be made better, or a double launch in some way, and not focus the money on the park, and then leave that as a park and make that a recreation area?
I think on the, and I'm getting more information, I think it's just gonna be a single lane ramp, down at Drayton Island. But there's no parking, and there's no room to do anything else other than what they're gonna do. And there's 0 parking.
No chance of land acquisition to,
I'm afraid
Mr.
we waited too long.
Mr. Adams,
I just want to make sure I understand the risk of not being in compliance. So if we're not in compliance at the Georgetown property, that does not affect other properties, is that correct? So that it only affects that project?
It may affect us getting any more money from them on any other properties, though. It could.
Do we know that? That's the question. I've kind of asked it 3 different times since I've been here, and I've gotten
Well, I don't-
close to the same answer, but not clear.
I don't know if you want to ask that question. I mean,
Sure I
don't-
do, because if we
Don't
don't,
ask the question unless
I
you know.
don't know that, like 9 Mile, we want to give that back. We
Yeah,
want to get rid of
but-
it. This, we have investments into. If we don't do the boat ramp and they don't allow us to come in compliance, we may still want to keep that park, because we have a park there and we have resources there. So there is activity that can be done at that park separate from a boat ramp, where if they don't allow us to come into compliance, there's no path that the state gives us. Let's say that's the outcome that happens. I don't know that we want to give that park.
Well, I'll just answer the question for you. I'll tell you what was told to me when I first got here. Don't come back up here begging for money if you're not going to do the projects you already got on hand. And that was what was told to me. Now, would they be forgiving on this? And maybe, we bit off more than we can chew, and the economy tanked, and wetlands are the issue. Maybe that's the conversation that we need to let staff have. But truly, I'm not about to go ask, hey, does it affect our other funding? Because I'm hoping that they go, yeah, let's fix the management plan, and now we can go after more funding. That's what I'd rather see. Mr. Rawls?
I think, well,
Go ahead,
let me
Mr.
follow up. I would love to see that, and I guess I'm just trying to be prepared if the answer is what it sounds like everyone thinks it will be, which would be consistent with the other properties.
There's no way
So
of knowing.
there's
Can't,
no way.
right.
No
But
way of
we
knowing.
could be prepared if we had that answer.
If it's deemed to have wetlands, do we have any property that we could put up to mitigate the wetlands? Is there, and we have that property that we got from, the Bet Group, and part of that's been used for mitigation bank, right there proximal to the
And we
jail.
own property around Rice Creek that,
So, is that a question that we can start asking right now and take everybody's
I think,
anxiety away?
I think the best thing we do is throw everything, let Julianne, Mr. Suggs, Mr. Pickens wants to be involved and it's his district or down in that area. I'm fine with that, but let them throw everything on the table and come out with as much information and a plan that they can get. And oh, by the way, we have this land and we can mitigate. But let's find every avenue, because what I'm hearing is all 5 of us want to move Georgetown forward in some shape or fashion.
Well, from Willaca to Georgetown is exploding. There is so much money being pumped in down there from a residential perspective. And if the folks that you guys are getting down there, they got boats, they got lots of money. So they're gonna need access to a public boat ramp. I think that it needs to happen somewhere down there, even if we have to go buy a piece of property somewhere else to build a boat ramp or somehow acquire, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Commissioner Pickens says we might have missed that ship, but if there's a way that we can get around it by mitigating it through a bank, that might be a way around and
Mr.
get
Turner?
that big parking area done.
Or just stay out of the wetland, if we have enough area out of the wetland to do it, I think we do down there.
Because I thought when
The only wetland was only up next to the, area, I think. So the whole place is wetland, is that?
I thought the
what you're
whole end of it on the riverside was.
Riverside into the river is all delineated as wetland. It does tee off at the
Okay,
very
well, I'm with
end.
Commissioner Rawls. If we need to mitigate enough of it to put in a boat ramp, let's see about mitigating. We can give them a parcel of something else we have around here that's wetland. We ought to be able to use our own land for mitigation credits.
Give about
by
50 or
just
60
putting
of
it
those
in
mobile homes that need to be
conservation.
torn down and.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, trying to move this forward at this time, could we just, go ahead and give her the staff, the authority, and Mr. Pickens Commissioner Pickens is also the, Director of Parks and Rec, and it's in his district. I think that he should be involved, and just let, Commissioner Pickens and staff talk to him and see if maybe they'll be a little more lenient on this one than they were on the last one.
All right, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have proper motion by Commissioner Turner,
I'll second it.
proper second by Commissioner Pickens. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And for the record, I'm glad we did something down there. At least we got something started, so.
Me and you both.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can carry through with our
I agree.
plan.
All right, next item for discussion is the irrigation plan, Public Works, page 6 in your agenda. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Jacob, can we take that off the screen right now? Thank you. Mr. Troxel, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, Public Works is requesting the board's approval to look at adopting an ordinance for irrigation, an irrigation ordinance to limit the amount of water we can do for irrigation purposes when it comes to for water for houses or some of the smaller businesses or whatever. I know this has been in front of the board a couple years ago, and it was shot down then. However, in January of this year, the St. John's Water Management District did approve an update to their district-wide cost-sharing program. And one of those updates was that municipalities and counties must have a landscaping irrigation ordinance consistent with the district's model. And what happens if we don't have one, then we cannot get grants that we regularly apply for grants through this program. And without an ordinance limiting irrigation conservation, then we won't be eligible for grants anymore, so. But with that said, the Putnam County Land Development Code, in Article 7.3.5, paragraph D, does say that we will follow the St. Johns River Water Management Plan when it comes to irrigation and houses. So we already have it kind of in our land development code. I think we just need an ordinance passed potentially to codify that so that we can go forward with grants in the future.
Mr. Turner.
Number one, we're fixing to change our land code shortly.
Correct.
So, number two, I realize that the water management is wanting to force us, where before they kind of just said, we want you to do this, and along with several other issues that they brought that were controversial, and we decided not to do it back then. So, after reading this ordinance last night, if we could, I can swallow this a lot better if, and only if, that we change the fines from 130, what was it? $118 for a first violation and subsequent 268. If we change those fines to $15 for the first one and 30 for the second one, or the third one and the fourth one, or whatever, then I'll go ahead and support your deal, because Water Management's told us we're not going to get any more grants. We're not going to get any more water management funding for our sewer systems or water systems or whatever they decide to fund. So I understand that they're, even though I look at it as being maybe a little heavy-handed, but they're more than encouraging us to participate in this ordinance because they want it done, and so I understand. But if we'll change those to a fine that makes sense, I mean, really, what I see here is this is perfect neighbor dispute material.
Oh, God, yeah.
They're gonna take a picture of somebody running the thing, and they could even change the time on the camera. And take a picture of somebody watering something, and all of a sudden they want, and this is gonna be a code enforcement issue for us. They're gonna want
our
codes
ordinance.
to run out there and catch them, is what they're gonna wanna do, and then fine them a bunch of money, and when they don't pay it, carry it to magistrate. Then there's gonna be another $64,000 fine on top of a house because he turned his irrigation system on. So the only way that I'll support this, if we drop the fine amounts down to $15 for a first violation and $30 for thereafter. Thank you, Mr.
I got a problem,
Chairman.
I agree.
Okay, Mr. Pickens, I think.
Well, on that note, where did the fine numbers come from? Did someone just pick them? Is that in the Florida statute?
That's probably one of their standard ones that they put in there. We can, as far as I know, we can change the fines. It's up to us.
All right, I have two.
We have full liberty to change it. I'm with Mr. Turner
I have
100%.
two number twos and a number three, so Mr. Pickens, you go first, and then
Yeah, that was one of my questions of where the fine amount came from, so reducing it's fine with me, but it kind of sounds like we're being voluntold to do this.
you think.
As I've been voluntold to do certain things, so is what it sounds like. Pretty, you use strong arm, but, we can't really jeopardize not being able to apply for those funds. We're too far in it, and it means too much to the quality of life here, so I don't know that we have a choice.
And in my opinion, it's not that much different than what we currently have in our land development code. There is some tweaks there, like, well, the fines is one of them, but our land development code is consistent with this for the most part.
Well, I'm sorry you're having to stand there. Mr. Rawls?
And it's separate from agricultural uses, correct?
That's
Your
correct.
farmers are not
No, this is
under this.
residential
Residential
irrigation,
and-
correct?
and-
In commercial, but not
Number of
not
exceptions.
agricultural.
Not agricultural.
Yeah, that's what I thought I read. Okay, thank you.
I think, especially with, we're going through our comp plan right now. This is perfect timing for this to happen. I agree with Mr. Turner on the fines, minimize them. If we have to if somebody really gets out of line and is just not complying, then you're gonna have that. And there's people that wanna water at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of July, which is, my estimation is foolish, because you're just wasting water, but, you know, I don't think there's any reason for us to be good stewards to what's entrusted to us, and this is what it communicates, and, any future development that comes in would be constrained by this, and that's a good thing. And, you know, other counties have, they adopt the Water Star compliance, program that the Water Management District has, and they actually offer incentives to developers and builders who are willing to go along and comply with the Water Star compliance, and it's really not hard. You can have a nice green lush lawn and water 3 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
You can have one and
Train
water
your
7
yard.
days a week, and you can have lots of dollarweed to go with it. But
Train your yard.
so I think it's just a matter of, it's, from a conservation perspective, I think it's good, makes a lot of sense, and I've got no problem with it.
All right, before I call on Mr. Turner, I want to say, I have a problem even reducing those fines. You and I have talked about this. I felt it was very heavy-handed. I think it's Big Brother telling us what we're going to do in order to play in their sandbox. And that doesn't sit well for me. It doesn't. We stand on our own merit for things that we've done everything they pretty much asked us to do, and then we've completed the projects as they've asked. But my problem is, as a conservative, who in the world is going to go out here and write these tickets and do it? See, I'm not one that wants to write ordinances just to write ordinances with no enforcement. I think it's ridiculous. And you know, I don't even want my neighbor to get a $15 bill. I mean, I understand that if we have to do something. I just wonder if we have to do that. I mean, I wonder if we can just say, you know what, we'll go with everything. We ain't going with that. You know what? And then if you don't want to play with us, and maybe we have to go back then and change it. But even if we changed it from 118 to 15 and 268 to 30, they might go, no, it's going to be what we said. And I'm not.
Then it would be a different conversation
yeah.
over what we're having today.
Then they are telling us what we have to do.
'Cause they, quite honestly, they also wanted us to change our water rate structure, and we kind of balked at that, and they let us keep our existing water rate structure, but they were wanting us to change.
For irrigation?
For what we charge residents for their water usage.
Well, I know they're watching and I have the floor, so I'm going to say, you know, maybe it's time for them to start looking at what they need to do too, because I don't think they've done a very good job on managing water in the state of Florida. So, and I'm talking about the canals and the cleanouts that you and I don't have easements to get across, wetlands that have been filled in. You know the story.
Right.
We've had this conversation.
Yes.
So, Mr. Turner, you're next, and then Mr. Adams.
Okay,
Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
I absolutely agree with everything you just said, and when I started this conversation, you can ask Miss Young, I was at a different tone than I am at the moment, about them forcing us to do this, especially when we turned them down 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago, on the same issue, along with a couple of other issues we turned them down on, so they tied it to funding. You don't wanna play in our sand, if you don't want us to fund you, fine, don't do it, it's fine, we don't fund you. Well, as much as I dislike the taste of this, and I do, as much as I dislike it, I don't see where we have a choice other than to reduce the fines down past the thing and hope it doesn't turn into a neighbor dispute. If it turns into an area where it does, even with the reduced fines, they can always take it to the special magistrate for a special issue at some point. But I just don't ever think it's gonna get there. I don't, you know, I guess I shouldn't say this, I just don't think you're gonna get a codes officer to ride out there and give somebody a fine for their sprinkler running at 2 in the afternoon. Number one, they got to catch them doing it. And then they gonna, hopefully codes enforcement around here always gives them a first or second warning before they ever give them a fine. If we've got a code enforcement officer that walks out there and starts writing fines, we got the wrong code enforcement officer. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, you know, I'm willing to do it to 10 and 20, 5 and 10. I don't care, drop it on down, but, you know, yes, I'm sorry, Rich.
No, I just thought I would help, because I was looking through the other counties that have passed similar type ordinances, and Orange County has a $25 per violation fine. But I agree with you, the code enforcement officer would have to catch them in the act in order for us to actually issue some sort of warning or.
I'm good in making it 5 and 10, Mr. Chairman. I mean, really, I seriously am. $5 and $10. Then if it turns into an issue, a guy can just keep paying the fines until he's tired of not being told what to do, and then he can go ahead and just reset his water timer to when he's supposed to run it.
Mr. Adams, you have the floor.
I would love to see it be $1 and $2, but one thing we do have to consider is the cost of when
And
they,
after my heart.
the cost when they get the call, though, we do have to take that into consideration, because we are gonna have to respond to a phone call. So I think the fine does have to cover
Well,
the cost of the trip out.
Commissioner, some of that depends on how busy we are. If they're going out to other things, I would imagine this may end up as a lower priority to some of the other code
So
enforcement.
do we have the option to not respond to the calls?
I leave that up to the department to administer based on what I am sure they hear. the
Based on
commission's
call volume and other
direction is.
calls?
You say 1 and 2, is that what
Yeah, I
you
did.
suggested?
Um, So, yeah, I'm for lowering it to wherever we can, and I didn't look at the statute when I reviewed this, I don't know why it didn't jump out to me, but the statute gives you maximums, it doesn't give you a minimum fine amount.
Right.
So I don't see where it says you couldn't do 1 and 2, or 10 and 5, or whatever we wanted to do.
Well, I hear 5 and 10.
7 and 11.
So, yeah,
Okay, Mr. Rawls, you have the floor.
So, you know, there's speed limit signs all over our county, and our sheriff's department doesn't necessarily run around looking at, pulling people over for speeding. They don't enforce the speed limits everywhere. So I think this is just one of those situations where we need to, the what? Sorry.
Rich, you need to quit reading stuff, you're gonna find
it's probably
something in there
Hey,
that we can't do what we
It's where we
want.
need to take
Wait a
it.
minute, Rich. Wait.
This may help with what you're looking, and I'm not trying to be funny. So Orange County, the first time violators receive a warning on a door hanger notice. They don't get a fine the first time.
Okay,
think that was
first
in
time
there.
violators get a warning, and second time violators $10?
50 cents.
All right, I'm going to say this.
Wait,
ahead, Mr.
let's
Rawls,
go
you
before
have the
though.
floor.
We're not, when it's convenient, areas are enforced. We get people that complain all the time of people speeding up and down roads. And the sheriff's department will respond when it's convenient, but I don't think it's practical for us to be big brother and oversee everybody's stuff. And then you've always got the response, well, I was just testing my irrigation system or maintaining it. And you're allowed to do that every day if you want, under water management rules. So I think we should reduce the fines to a minimum where it's a warning, and then whatever the minimum is, appease the water management district to the extent that we have to, and nothing more, and move on.
So, first a warning, and second,
A stern warning.
$5?
First one, a warning, the second, a
With
stern
something
warning.
hung on the door.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually like the idea of $5 better than the hanger, because then you actually have to mandate someone goes out there to hang the hanger, and you gotta print the hangers.
I think we should
Just do
actually
5
give them
and
a
10 or-
warning the first time, just because they don't realize that they even did something wrong in most cases. So if you give them a warning the first time and then charge them $5 for a subsequent warning, then if they turn out to be a repeat offender, you can always take them to the magistrate if you just hell-bent on doing something about it. So,
Well, I guess-
Mr. Chairman, I move
I
that.
apologize, this does say first contact written warning, first violation,
Right.
second violation, so,
Do a warning and then $5, $10.
yeah.
Be done with it.
Sounds to me, was that a motion, Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All right.
Well, wait a minute, what are you doing down there, Terry?
He wants $1, $2.
No, just, yeah, just one number. It doesn't matter about first or second, just one number.
$5? Is that good?
That's
Mr.
up to you.
Pickens? Commissioner Pickens? Was that a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I kind of
I'm
wondered who
supposed
was.
to I'm just used to it.
I understand. We have a proper motion by Commissioner Pickens for the written warning and then first violation and subsequent 5 and 5. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Rawls. All right,
So under discussion, Mr. Chairman,
sir.
we're just gonna take first violation out of it, and we're just gonna have first contact, written warranty, and subsequent violations, $5.
that's how the motion is stated. First contact is written warning. After that, All right, so we have proper motion on the floor, proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Aye.
You know, it comes to mind, that movie Liar Liar, when Jim Carrey gets pulled over and the cop says, "Do you want I pulled you over?" And he opens the glove box, he says, "I have speeding tickets," and they all fall out. Or parking tickets, rather.
I'm gonna tell you, you go out to my area and watch it rain, and you go by some of the fields and see the water sprinklers going, but, you know, principal, I just can't go there, I'm sorry. So, all right,
Mr. Chairman, adopting an ordinance, I think that requires a little bit more than this, so we'll have to, so we can press forward with getting the ordinance.
I mean, I
push
get what it's
forward.
written,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll
Okay, so
rewrite it to that date,
basically
but then
what you're needing
push
us to
forward.
do is adopt the ordinance as written with the changes we made.
I think there has to be a reading or something else for ordinances.
Oh,
so-
Lord.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it has to be written.
I'm sorry you had to stand there and do this.
You'll get it.
Mr. Chairman, we just need to make sure that this ordinance matches our newest version of the comp plan. The newest version. And if it does, then we need to make sure that it's not gonna
Jim?
prevent us.
Hang on,
We
Mr.
need to make sure that whatever we put in here doesn't prevent us from doing any of the changes we want to make in the land development code. So as part of this process, before we read this ordinance, would you look at it, have whoever's doing your plan revisions and whoever's gonna work your comp plan, or your land development code revisions, when we get to that, would you have them review and maybe make sure this is not gonna conflict with the current changes we made or the ones that we're considering making when we hire the new firm?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, that will be hopefully hiring a firm later this year and completion of the land development code by September 2022. So absolutely.
All right, good. Jim, you have the floor on the next item, the temporary use permit review.
I do, Mr. Chair, thank you, and members of the board. This is something that came to my attention after an event that occurred, and we worked with the sheriff's office and our fire department. We found that we needed a better practice in place to truly manage these temporary use permits. I know that I've spoken to many of you individually about this, but just to say that the temporary use permits are issued from my office for legitimate purposes, whether it be a fair or a carnival or an event on the side of the road, somebody selling wares or goods. It also could be for a medical hardship, or it could be for putting an RV on a property while someone's getting a home built. So there's a lot of variance and direction for a temporary use permit. What this is particularly looking at is the health and safety aspect of issuing a temporary use permit. Again, going back to a fair, going back to a carnival, should I say, a mud bogging event on someone's property. So when I presented this to Mr. Suggs, he wanted to ensure that each one of the members of this board had an opportunity to hear the changes that we're making. The majority of what's stated here is already governed by Land Development Code in Chapter 2.05, specifically giving me the permission as the executive director to form a committee or to ask county and public safety officials outside the county to review the temporary use permits. We would like a better process in place that we're providing this review for all of these processes, much like we do with our development review committee. When a new application comes in for development, we're sending it out to a dedicated group of people, both internally and externally, to review the process. So again, we want to bring awareness to you as a board as to our process. This process is not associated with Parks and Recreation, so if you wanted to get a permit through Mr. Stevens for Parks and Rec, you would still go through that process. This would be specifically and strictly limited to anything other than Parks and Rec's permits. So some of the changes that we're asking for here, it's not stated in the Land Development Code the number of days that we would like an application to be provided. It's not stated in state statute, but we know that we need time to review these documents. We also need time for payment to be made to certain entities like the fire department. So we felt that 20 days was a reasonable period to get an application in and to be reviewed. Now, when I say we, I've taken this to staff and the sheriff's office and all to look at it preliminarily, and they all agree with the tenets that are here. We just need to move forward to push this out to our general public. As I stated, this is to ensure life safety. That's the priority behind it. There is a $100 existing application fee for all temporary use permits. And then when finished, we would then certainly take our letter, our application, and put it on the internet and provide it to others in the community so they know what the standing process is. And when our land development code is updated, we would make these changes to that particular section. So what you have in front of you is a letter that I'm prepared to write to, as you can see, a whole host of individuals that would have primary review authority over our temporary use permits, talking about what I'm looking for in their review. Again, this is something that we haven't done as an overall board or review board in the past, and we want to make sure that we're not letting events fall through the cracks and we have issues from a life or safety issue. And then just strictly talking about some of the processes that the applicant can and cannot do. There's also an appeals process that's already established in the Land Development Code. If someone wants to appeal the decision that's made by me or my designee, they can easily appeal that. And then as you will find, there is an application. This is an updated application. The application has much more material in it than it ever has. And again, we're looking at a reason for event, the number of people expected. And those are all key things that we're looking at to determine whether sheriff's staff is going to be needed, fire service staff may be needed, will alcohol be served, will food be served? Will there be a need for electrical, building permits, stages, to where those things have to be inspected, and we want to ensure the safety of those events that are occurring and that we're abiding by not only our code but Florida statute. Ultimately, the application is pretty straightforward to even include a parking requirement that would be reviewed by Public Works. We do get requests at times to push the amplifying sound ordinance, to get a waiver for that at the fairgrounds. So that will also be included in this. And ultimately a review by the Sheriff's Office, our fire services, and our Public Works as to equipment and needs to include staffing that may be required to facilitate this event. They'll provide their comments, and ultimately those comments would come back to me. We'd make a decision and present this to the applicant within the time period that's been specified. So again, this is truly contained. This process is here, but we wanted to make sure that you were aware of some changes that we're wanting to make in case you did get comments or concerns from members of the public. We're not putting anything in place other than a 20-day time period is truly new and a new application. The fee still remains the same, and the review process will be a little bit more stringent, but it was allowed by the Land Development Code. So very briefly, Mr. Chair, that's the intent of this. Again, we want to provide safety to our members of our community and anybody that would be visiting these type of events, and we feel it's a very fair process. So I stand open to any questions that you or the board may have.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're going to add 20 days to the process that we haven't had before. Basically, we're going to take it out of the decision-making of just the planning department, and we're going to send it to a development review committee type thing, and this got to be done in 20 days. And we're going to cover any event in the county other than parks.
Correct. We won't cover the fair. That's the county fair. We would not look at that.
But all other events at the fairgrounds other than the fair.
If they require a temporary use permit, according to our current code, we would. And we do get requests for tent sales, fireworks sales. We do get those throughout the county, yes. We're not getting a lot.
I'm talking about the fairgrounds at the moment. So at the fairgrounds, we're not going to let them. I mean, I understand we had an issue one time with them doing something that turned out to be a little rougher than what it's supposed to be, but they reached out, and it wasn't just them that dropped the ball. We dropped it some with them. And so the county.
They do rent the facility,
right.
And there are times that we have received a request, Mr. Chair, from members of the public for us to provide an exemption for the amplified noise ordinance or the sound ordinance, and we've done that. But what we haven't done is what you're mentioning, is looking at the larger picture and looking at the event to ensure that there's safety for the public involved. So we would be looking at those events. Yes, we're looking at them now anyway and issuing temporary use permits for some of them.
Not for all of them, though. I mean,
That's
last
correct.
Thursday evening, they had an event at the fairgrounds. Did you issue a temporary use permit for that?
No,
Are you
sir.
saying we should, to have, for somebody to have a banquet or an event or anything like that? They've now got to file for to have one at our facility. We've got to give them 20 days notice and furnish all this information for, I don't know, pick one out the sky, the Ducks Unlimited, the Turkey Unlimited, or the Wild Turkey Federation, the Chamber, the Wild Game Feast.
I don't think
the different events that they have over there at the fairgrounds. I don't think any of them are being issued a temporary use permit at the present time.
That's a good point. I know they haven't been coming in front of us to be reviewed. That's not the intent, to look at a simple banquet. The intent would be look at something that would bring in hundreds of people, that would have traffic issues, that would potentially cause issues for egress, ingress, that would cause fire EMS issues, that would have potentially electrical and
I understand,
things
Jim,
like
you're
that.
not following me. The Wild Game Feast is a pretty big event. They haven't ever had traffic issues there because at the fairgrounds, they got all that way to get in and park that you're not parked out across the street somewhere when they come in and park in to have the event. So they have a lot of these different types of events at the fairgrounds. I don't think any of them in the past have been required to have a temporary use permit at the fairground. I'm not talking about a fireworks sale out on the side of the road somewhere where there's not ample parking and we need to try and do something about some of those types of things, or a temporary fruit stand. I'm talking about events at the fairground. Does that mean that through what you're proposing today, that we have to have a special use permit or a temporary use permit for any event that goes on at the fairgrounds except for the fair itself?
Mr. Chair, I don't know the answer to that at this time. I didn't anticipate that. Has it
Mr.
been-
Chairman, excuse me, Jim, just a minute. Let me see if I can help out a little bit here. You're absolutely correct, sir. A lot of the events that take place out at the fairgrounds were not coming through development services or permitting. Sometimes, and I can't tell you when it happened, but years ago, there was a process that had changed. At one point in time, there was a required approval from the county administrator's office for those events. Prior to any of us arriving here, that process changed, and we didn't realize that process had changed until an issue came up. But you're absolutely correct. Those events that happen out at the fairgrounds fall under the authority of the fair unless this board decides to change anything different at this time.
That's exactly the question I'm asking today. Are we trying to change those things, those events at the fairgrounds?
We're not asking the board to change that authority. What we're trying to do is when there's an issue that comes up, like Jim was explaining, that a tent sale or something like that, things that are going to require some public safety participation, that we go through the process to make sure that we have the system in place to be able to provide the safety and the stuff like that.
I don't disagree with that, Mr. Suggs. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But what I want to make sure of is that we're not tying the hands or adding another level to the fair, going over there and renting their building or having a deal. There wasn't nothing wrong with Thursday night. There was no traffic problems. They had 200 and something people there. There was no traffic problems. There was no anything. The wild game feast type deal when they go back to having it. I'm assuming it'll be before too many years, but when they go to having it, it's the same situation. I've been there multiple times, never seen a traffic problem, never seen any issues whatsoever. You know, so I understand with the deal where they had that, big, what was it?
Was it
A
family
concert that
concert,
time that
big
they had the
concert.
concert, and it ended up costing us 2 or 3 times what the fairgrounds got for rent, or 5 times or whatever, in different issues. I understand, but we got to figure out how to draw a line in between making the Rotary Club go and get a temporary use permit to use the fairgrounds to have a fundraiser for the Rotary, and having an event like a concert where somebody comes in and rents the fairgrounds, and it costs us $20,000 in sheriff's department time to go and watch the event. So there needs to be a line drawn somewhere in there, to me, of that we don't start making people with these events go get temporary use permits at the fairgrounds.
But using your own analogy, and I don't know, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, But that event that caused us to have to spend all those extra dollars and resources was an event that was put on at the fairgrounds. And without us having any type of communication, then we wouldn't be able to address that issue.
I understand, and I'm also not trying to be argumentative, but there were also times in that process, there were things that broke down that should have never been done in the first place, so we can't really use that as an example. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we can't use that event as an example because there were things in place that broke down. It broke down on our side and it broke down on the fair side. Both sides broke down. They shouldn't have had it without getting the okay and us having a shot at it, but they reached out to us, and when they didn't get, we didn't get back to them in a timely manner on that particular one, then they ended up having it anyhow. I don't think I agree with that decision, but the last thing that I want to see is a commissioner sitting up here and say, okay, you want to have the Chamber's annual event, and that's just another one, in the building there. So now you've got to have a 20-day review and pay $100 and have a 20-day review to go rent the fairgrounds building. That they're trying to generate more income for the fairgrounds building. They've had it for years there with no issues. So now we're going to put another impediment in whoever's path to go and rent our facility at the fairgrounds to have a banquet.
Okay, Mr. Rawls?
So I agree with what Commissioner Turner is saying. I thought the thing that happened almost 2 years ago, this June or July, was resolved. That was easily resolved because there was zero communication. The fairgrounds leased it out. An event happened. For whatever reason, the county decided not to act when it was first proposed. There was about 6 weeks that the thing was kicked around before it actually happened. And then everybody started going, oh my God, we got this headline that's coming in that could create problems. So that ship sailed a long time ago. I don't think, and I'm partial, I'll be the first one to admit, because I belong to the Rotary Club that puts on the Wild Game Feast, and we host about 400 people in that evening. But it's kind of a good example of what the fairgrounds can be used for. I wouldn't be opposed to having to fill out a temporary use permit, but then when you start looking at conditions that could be placed on, you have tents here and it says flame resistant certification required. I loaned my tent to Rotary Club for a pickleball tournament that was supposed to have this past weekend, and my tent is flame resistant, but the other ones that the club members have is not. So I would not want to say we have to run out and buy a bunch of $400 tents to put on this event. We're trying to raise money locally for charities. You know about that. So, and the same thing with, if the Chamber of Commerce, the tent that they use that says, Putnam County on it, that's not a flame resistant tent necessarily, but they need to be able to put it up and use it if they want. So I think this needs to be used with caution. I'm not saying that we need to be selective and selectively enforce this, but I think this is where common sense needs to come into play. But I'm really thrown back by, do you have to fill this out to live in a camper while you're building a house? Because I just did that, and I didn't have to fill anything like this out.
We have a separate, Mr. Chair, we have a separate application for that.
You have what?
We have a separate application for that.
Okay, so it is still different, okay.
It is.
Okay, I like the fact that the direction you're going is correct. You've got a special event committee. Typically, I would think that this would come before the BOCC for approval, where somebody would just fill out an application, say, these folks want to rent this facility or whatever, and we would approve that if it involves our facilities. Otherwise, if it involves Walmart's parking lot selling fireworks, I think this is perfectly acceptable, and I understand where you're going. I think we should do that. But as far as county-owned facilities, I think that should take a different direction, because we could also be including the Blueberry Festival that happens in Bostwick, or the Catfish Festival. Nope, I'm sorry, that's City of Crescent City. Yours is in the town of Interlaken. What else do we have in the county? Oh, the big yard sale in Pomona Park. Does it? Yeah, Swine and Wine, that's right. Oh, yeah, I think we got to be very careful with that. But the big yard sale in Pomona Park extends up 17. And, we just got to be careful, that's all.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just a few points of clarification. First of all, I didn't at all factor in what happened years ago. Truly, the impetus for this was a mud bog event that was going to go out in Crescent City a few months ago. And again, from a tent, it's only the cooking under the tent that's the requirement, but the fire marshal still has the responsibility to inspect those cookers that are there. So there are some nuances that go along with that. That's why we have them in the review process. But our intent is not to identify these small. I can tell you that we do have people renting the fairgrounds coming to us asking waivers for the sound ordinance. So I would look for direction or for assistance. If we're having an individual and we don't have a larger group, say 300-400 people, we need some guidance on what you would like to see happen, and I turn that to Mr. Suggs.
And we can do that. Jim, I don't mean to cut you short, but it's been a long day, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go back and let's look at it once again, and let's me and you walk the halls and have one-on-ones with each one of the commissioners and see what the consensus is of how we would like to do something like this, and then maybe bring it back at a future date for a future workshop.
Well, hang on. Mr. Adams, I'm going to call upon the people that got their hand raised.
I'm not even as concerned about the fair, and those are all valid points, but you're talking about private property and other things too, and, you know, our church does Sunday worship, sunrise worships, 4 Sundays a year at people's houses. Every one of those, would that be a temporary use permit? You know, there's just 150 people there, last 2 hours. I mean, there's a lot of events that happen in this county that would fall under, especially the way this is written, the current, you'd have to rewrite this to say how many people justifies a temporary use permit. None of that data is in here. And to me, I'm just not for it in general. But
Mr. Chair, the Land Development Code is just silent on that. It doesn't say.
Right. So, I mean, this doesn't really give any criteria. So, special unit, you know, yard sale, your kid sells lemonade and 100 people happen to show up. And this gets out into all this stuff that, as a conservative, that we hate to see on TV when it happens in other places. I don't want this here.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Pickens, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think probably needs to go back and let each commissioner give his opinion. But I think as Commissioner Turner with the fairground, I think the majority of the events that are there that are fine and are okay by just going through and applying with the fair authority. But when you have one that's going to be like the one that was there, whether it was music or whether it was a big car show or anything, where it's going to create the need for a lot more police and those type of things, I think we need to work with the county to make sure everybody is on board, like fire services and police services, sheriff services, stuff like that, to make sure we don't have a situation like that. So I agree. I believe this is the right step, but I think it just needs to be looked at a little bit further.
Well, it's my turn now, because
But I was on first.
I was ready to talk, and so go ahead, Mr. Rawls.
Your priority as chairman, you can take your turn whenever you please.
That's okay.
The city of Plaque has a special,
I don't care.
special events permit and a special events review. I think maybe that's what we should work towards. I don't think that we should have absolutely nothing. I think we go down a slippery slope. If we have nothing in place, and all of a sudden you have a pop-up festival and everybody's caught off guard, and people start getting hurt at this pop-up festival because, like that one that happened over at the fairgrounds, we were caught off guard. So, I think instead of temporary use permit, it should be more of a special events permit, and we, like Commissioner Adamsack said, should have criteria that dummies it down to where you can still have a lot of the things that we do and enjoy every weekend in Putnam County, but not have 500 people show up to a pop-up event, whether it's a mud bog or whatever, and you don't have EMS and law enforcement staff to control the situation. So I think, you know, we, as a civilized society, we owe it to our citizens, but and our law enforcement folks as well. I think it would be kind of rude to get dispatched to a call and you didn't even know something was going on. And I can, you know, what I'm thinking is I went to a call in Hollister, and a young man had been pushed and he fell over a stump. and he said he could not feel anything from the waist down, and there was a bunch of young folks drinking, and there was probably 200 people out there. And it was one of these things that just kind of sprang up, and no one had an idea this was going on. This happens a lot in the county, so I think we need something, but I think, like Mr. Turner, Mr. Suggs said, maybe you should rethink it and come back to us.
All right, since I can speak, I'm going to say thank you, because I know your light's on, but
No problem, sir.
I think you already have according to what I'm reading in land development, you already have certain jurisdictional things here. I think Commissioner Rawls kind of changed the lane on us and went with special events thing. So
Semantics.
I do think that we should look at, if we're going to go down that road, Mr. Adams Act, back when we mentioned some issues that we wanted to, priorities we want to look at for the county, had Fair and Expo, and I remember that. So maybe that area just needs to be exempt because that's where we want to do things at. The other thing I want to say, and I'm just throwing out because this one I know is probably not going to go well, but is $100 enough? And I don't mean that ugly, but we were talking about staff time and then all the different agencies and coordination, and you're talking about a $100 fee?
But we want these events.
Yeah, we do want these events, and we do want them, so.
That's a lot of money.
I'm asking the point, I just don't know, because I'd like to get us to where we're at a break-even point. We don't put $300 into staff review and charge $100, but we don't do $50 worth of work and charge $100 either at the same time. I'm just asking that. So, yeah, I think Commissioner Rawls, by changing the lane a little bit, I don't have a problem with what you did. I think that's good, and we'll come back to it. Mr. Turner.
So basically, at this point, what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on this again and bring it back as a special use and a special event permit of some kind, and try to maybe look at getting rid of the fairgrounds as part of it, and because the big event won't happen again. Like Jeff said, or Commissioner Rawls said, that's been fixed already, and so, or should have been. And so, what I don't want to do, Jim, is I don't want to charge Paul's church or Commissioner Adams Act's church $100 to go have service out on a lake by somebody's house. It may cause an issue that morning, but we got to figure out how to delineate some of that stuff. I know it's not easy. In fact, we're probably asking you to come up with a monumental task, but I think we got to go that route.
Okay, if I can, Mr. Chair, just to add to that, I know you want to get out of here, just to clarify that, putting my old cop hat on here, you allow the sheriff's office to review this and they say it's going to be 300 people. Why? Because you put it in your application. There'll be no alcohol served. You'll need traffic control coming in and out. They could easily identify what the needs are and say, all right, it'll require you to have one deputy sheriff there. And I'm not speaking for the sheriff. The same with the fire department. It could be that you've got 500 people there and it's going to be a such event. There are professionals. That's the purpose of this review, is to allow them to review this, to make that determination. If there's going to be 20 people there, if they're going to be moving throughout the day, you might see a comment back from the sheriff's office, no need for issue, or no need for staff or equipment. A lot of this may come back as that, much like you would see as a banquet. We're certainly not looking to go after these smaller events, but it's the larger events that would cause the problems. But we'll be glad to bring back recommendations.
I understand. We just need to try and have a line in there somewhere where we're not impeding normal events that happen around the county or putting another level of bureaucracy on it when there's really no issue there.
And we weren't going there to begin with, but now that you bring that up, we
Yeah, I
have to
understand.
at least address
We
that.
need to figure that. It's just my.
Sure.
I'd encourage you to take a look at the city of Palacios.
Okay,
We did.
but that's
Yes, sir,
a
we
whole
did.
nother conversation. This one today is basically, do you feel like you have the authority under the Land Development Code to gather the agencies together to issue the temporary use permits as it states right now?
I do, yes, sir.
Yeah, and you do, according to what this is. But all you needed was, what you asked for in this area was 20 days, right?
Technically, yes, yes.
And that's
And
all
a
you're
change in
asking.
application, but yes.
Right. So, commissioners, I think it's prudent for us today We already have this in our land development code. You're just asking for 20 days to do the review, if you deem it necessary to do the review on certain things that are listed in here now.
Correct, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Can we do that, sir?
I think Mr. Adams.
Mr. Adams, that?
I think we need to look at the land development code as far as putting numbers and stuff to it before we give authorization
We're
to do
fixing
that.
to anyways. This is gonna be a
Yeah,
temporary thing.
but if this is something we started tomorrow, then there's 10 activities I know of in the next 10 days that would require a temporary use permit. There's hundreds of activities that take place in this community.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do it.
Mr. Turner?
And it's gonna piss off a lot of people.
Your mic is on.
I know, I'm saying.
This
You're
commission,
right, you're right. Good
this
thought.
commissioner would like to see us visit this situation, and do what Administrator Suggs suggested a minute ago, walk the halls, get some input. I don't care if the land code says it right now, because we're fixing to rewrite the land code right here shortly. So if this is one of them issues we want to visit in the land code, great. You know, if not, then we can stay where it is. So I'm not saying we thumb our nose at our land code, don't misunderstand that comment, but we are fixing to change it. And so we want to change it for the betterment of Putnam County, not the convenience of Putnam County, if that makes sense.
And the truth is, if they need
Okay,
more
wait a
than
minute.
20 days, they're gonna
Mr.
take it.
Pickens, you have the floor, sir.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be for the betterment of the county and the events that are gonna be held. And there'll be some, like you said, if they apply, they won't even need anything, but there'll be some, as an example of the one that was gonna happen in South Putnam, it needed it. It needed police protection, it needed emergency service protection, it needed a lot of things that didn't get done, and thank the Lord it didn't happen, so.
You know what bothers me, and I'll end the conversation, okay, is that responsible people do responsible things. When we have a church event, we have paramedic, we have policemen, we do all the things we're supposed to do. And to come out here and get heavy-handed, but that's not, I guess we lost the point, and I'll apologize to you on that, because I thought we were just going to stick with this. But you know what? We'll wait, and we'll walk the halls, and we'll come back another day.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Public comment on miscellaneous items. I got 2 cards today. Mr. Douglas Hayes, would you like to come up and speak to us, please, sir? And you're talking about the Seavers Network Communications today.
Hi, I'm Douglas Hayes at 216 Huron Avenue, Satsuma. Taking my time out as a citizen to sit here for half your meeting so I could maybe provide a little insight and information in regards to the attempt to try to get the network that's a statewide network. I want to commend the sheriff for all his attempts. What we're running into apparently is that there was a grant. Speaking to the administrator and the people that oversee this network, that from what I gather is that the infrastructure that's currently in place in Putnam County would not support the radio traffic of our local law enforcement and emergency services. And therefore, they're putting the ball in our court to improve the infrastructure. And so that's where all this grant money that we've been trying to do, millions of dollars. If you look at the statutes, which I'm going to hand to the county administrator, you will see that it is the responsibility of the people that are running the network. We're simply subscribers. And so we should be able to dispute that, according to the statutes that set up the Sears, is that, in fact, quote unquote, here, the department shall bear the overall responsibility for design, engineering, acquisition, and implementation of the statewide radio communication system, ensuring proper operation, maintenance of all common equipment. So us as subscribers should not have to pay for the towers. The state should be doing that. The other thing is that if the current infrastructure that's in place cannot handle our radio traffic, if we have a natural disaster and we have outside agencies, people from other states that help us clean up, that the amount of radio traffic would be increased, and perhaps the infrastructure would not be able to support it. And once again, according to statute, that the ball would be in the court of the state to be trying to provide the safety and security of the citizens of the state. So I think we have a point of argument to get the state to build the towers, where we simply subscribe. Finally, is that through the traffic, which may be something you already are aware of, but one way to pay for that subscription is that there's a $12.50 mandate of our traffic citation money would go to pay for that service that we would be getting. So there is a way to pay for that subscription. Thank you very much. The very last thing too, because I did get a chance to sit in for the Blueways and Trails update and everything, is to point out that the one marketing tool that we are not utilizing to its utmost is the Visit Florida website, which is a nonprofit providing a service to market the state of Florida. Currently, they keep revamping their website, but they've been pushing the beaches. We're getting lost in the mix, and one of our marketing tools to get on the map with the Visit Florida is to make sure that our events, all these events, because there's a list where you can designate events, and people that are coming down are going to be looking for events, and that's one of our marketing tools. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Bates.
Can I say something quick?
Yes, please.
Doug, so I got an email today. It was one of those funny emails that somebody sent me, and it has a picture of Governor Cuomo, and it says, Florida's Realtor of the Year.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah.
but the point is that we should be marketing to the folks up in New York, New Jersey, Michigan, and those states, especially with all this cold they've had, and showing them Putnam County and the river and the woods and what people are able to do. I was on a conference call, a Zoom call last week, and I'm sitting in shorts and a T-shirt, and I'm talking to a guy in Ohio and one in Michigan, and the guy in Michigan's got on a flannel shirt, and I said, "It looks like you're cold wherever you are," and he goes, "Oh God, yeah, it's snowing outside." And I stood up and I said, "Not in Florida." So you're right. We need to be marketing, but I think marketing outside the state, we can definitely attract some folks down here to come and visit and spend a little bit of their cash.
When you do a search engine and you're looking at search engine optimization, and you have whether it's people that are thinking about coming to Florida, part of the marketing instrument that the state has is the Visit Florida website. And prior to the revamp of their website, they were pushing the Swanee River. And I had mentioned this in the past, that we need to get on board. I even called their organization and said, "There's nothing discussing that we're the bass capital of the world." And he goes, "Well, the people that fish already know that." And I said, "Come on, guy."
This weekend, we're the Jeep capital of the world, it looked like. I don't know what
Right.
happened, but there was a bunch of Jeeps here.
Right, but when all's said and done is that we've got to advocate for our existence on that website. It's free.
Thank you. Mr. Tim Hotelan.
Larry. That's from Charlie.
You are so in trouble. You realize?
Hi again, Tim Hoteling from San Mateo. Finally, a timely topic, hopefully, for y'all. My initial urging was an observation that the bridge over Dunn's Creek is coming towards the final stages. I've pushed and pushed and pushed and got nowhere because the public previously had a homemade, if you will, launch site there, and there were bass boats could come in and out. It's a little bumpy, but it wasn't bad. And families would have lunch there all the time. It was really a good opportunity. Across the way, also, families would come to the river for the primarily lunchtime thing. The Florida DOT sold the northern side of the river, so nobody can gain access to that because they had wetlands mitigation so they sold it out, screwed the people that, pardon me, did no just service to the people that use it all the time, and told me, we build roads, we don't build boat ramps. Okay, that's point one. I think now that they're closing in on the final stages of that, they've got the road, the service road down to the house that doesn't have anybody live in it anymore, and also / bicycle trail installed. I had been recommended that said the county should put in a park there and make their own by the FDOT, okay? I think it should be hand in hand, but they can tell me where to go, and they did very directly. The other thing is, listening to the stuff that y'all were talking about down in South County, Lake George boat ramp that we all want. Everything usually comes down to money. On January 4th, I found this. This is just a cutout from an article, an editorial in the Florida Sportsman's Magazine. And the biggest thing, it identifies multiple sources of funding, free money. But the biggest thing was the Great American Outdoors Act that was just passed that has multiple millions of dollars specified for recreational water access. And mandatory federal law, 15% of the fishing funds goes to fixing boat ramps. I would hope, I sent this to Kevin way back in January. I don't know if it got lost in the stack. Probably did. I bloody well almost forgot it, but it appears to me to be the sources of some money, and those two projects in my mind really need attention because, as you know, there's no access to the river up between San Mateo and Malacca, basically. There's a couple of ramps, but there's no boat parking or anything. Anyhow, just refresh your memories, and maybe you can encourage, I think there's a person here now that does a lot of grant writing. If you can spin that propeller and ask if they'd be kind enough and come and advise you.
Good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. All right, Commissioner request, Mr. Adamsack?
I don't have any.
Mr. Turner? Mr. Pickens? Nothing. Mr. Rawls?
I had something, but I forgot what it was.
Yeah, and I don't have anything.
Move on quick.
County Attorney, County Administrator.
Well, the county attorney left, so we can make any comments we want, right? But in all seriousness, no, sir, it's been a long day, good day, and county administrator has no further comments.
This meeting's adjourned.